rock and roll. Are you ready, kiddo?
Yes.
Cool, dude. Kris, welcome, man.
Thank you very much for having me, buddy.
I'm pumped over this one because, going back and forth with Zach and just looking into everything. I mean, you're one of the OGs that just you're just doing everything fitness wise, and I mean, the ins and outs of the industry, in the good, the bad, and the evil, and I definitely want to jump into that. So why don't you give me an intro? Pretty much, if nobody ever heard of you before, who are you, what are you, and let's go from there, and then we're just going to roll right into it.
Sounds good. Whenever people say the OG, I know they mean old. Been around for donkeys. But yeah, this weird accent comes from Wales. And, I grew up in Wales for the first half of my life. So, the first 25 years I was there, grew up on a farm, built quite a strong work ethic from a young age because I was forced to work.
Don't have an option on a farm to not have the work ethic.
And so it became robotic after a while. But, I absolutely loved my upbringing because I'm definitely a little bit more of a hermit. I like my own company. Mm-hmm. So, being an only child for the first 9 years was great, Not saying that my sister was a burden, but, I just enjoyed the adventure and my own company. And, the majority of my time was taken up from the age of 6 years old racing motocross.
Really?
Yeah. So from a developing age, I was racing and, I just continued that up until the age of, I think I was nearly 20.
That's a tough sport.
Yeah.
That's tough on the body.
Man, I'm feeling a lot of the repercussions now. A lot of them. Like the reason why I retired was because of injuries.
Yeah.
And, it was a back injury that really put an end to it. I'd had a lot of other injuries, torn this, broken that. But it was the back that I just could not get around, could not fix it, And I went to, a lot of different specialists and that kind of put that nail in the coffin. But, all these things happen for a reason. I still love the sport, but that's what really got me into resistance training. I find it quite funny and ironic that a lot of athletes get injured and then they find weight training or bodybuilding or something like that. But it was healing. So, when I was racing motocross, I didn't do any weight training. There wasn't that much education around it other than just do a lot of cardio.
Yeah.
So a lot of running, a lot of cycling and time on the bike. Twice a week would be on the motorbike, apart from race weekends. And, but through the resistance training, which I'd fallen into via physiotherapy, I was able to strengthen the muscles around my back and kind of alleviate the issue that was going on with my spine. I had a severe curvature. I still got it now, but I'm able to manage with it, through movement. If I'm stuck on a plane for a while, that's what really screws me up.
And you travel a lot.
A lot.
You're the only person, as Zach and I were talking about it, you're the only person that I know that's on the road more than me. And you're gone a lot.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm sure I just got off a flight the other day and I was just smoked, like absolutely wiped on that. I feel your pain when it comes to those long flights.
Usually I'm okay with jet lag. I've found a way of hacking that.
Okay, I want to dig into that down the road.
Yeah, but it didn't work for neither myself or my wife when we went to Dubai recently. That kind of screwed us up on the way there. On the way back, I was fine. And I never get that.
Very interesting.
Never get that. So I don't know what happened there. But usually I'm okay with that. But it's funny that I go and travel to talk about health optimization and longevity and biohacking, where I know that is putting a stress on my system.
For sure.
Changing the time zones and dealing with the stress of trying to stay on top of your work while you're traveling, taking these opportunities that I don't know if they are opportunities anymore.
It's funny you say that. So here you are teaching this health life, but you're on the road and it almost, so you probably have to work even harder to live that life that you're preaching while being, a diet alone. That's my biggest struggle since I travel so much. It's just finding, and I'm not like in a city where I'm there for 4 or 5 days. Okay, cool. I can find these cool restaurants. These ones are really healthy. I can just get my protein, clean proteins and all that stuff. Like I'm just driving all day and half the time it's across like the middle of bumfuck nowhere. So I'm like trying to okay, I got a gas station in the next 3 hours. That's all we're having. Like that's one of my biggest struggles on the road, especially getting older, just hit 40 this year. You're, correct me if I'm wrong, 50, correct?
50,
Which
yeah.
blew my mind when I heard this. And I was like, absolutely not. Just by your obviously look, physical appearance, skin and everything. I mean, you look incredible for 50. So that's when I was like, I have to talk to this guy because I need to know, and I have so many, especially veterans and disabled vets that we've just completely destroyed our bodies over the years and been run ragged, you know? I've been in some pretty bad accidents, almost killed myself 2 years ago in an ATV wreck. And it's like, that's when I really woke up because I kind of went stagnant for a little bit. And I was like, if I don't get ahead of this now, I don't want to be that old grandfather that I can't play with my grandkids, or even I got a 10-year-old and in the next 10 years, she's 20 and still active. Like, I don't want to be stiff. And that's where I'm catching myself now. So that was my biggest thing. Like, I can't wait to pick your brain in that, but it's funny that you're bringing that up because you always look at these fitness people, influencers, and like, I'm the healthiest, but they never talk about the actual, like, hey, I'm on the road and this is the struggles and the things I have to do. So I'm really glad you're bringing these types of things up right out the beginning. I'm going to have a million questions for you. So, okay, on the road, continue. I'm sorry, but
I carry on, mate. That's fine.
This is going to be a whole can of worms.
Yeah. So I've definitely learned over the years to control my environment when I travel, as opposed to getting controlled by it and justify an excuse. I guess having clients, I've trained a lot of people in the past and I do online training now, but encountering a lot of the issues that they go through, and I'm thinking, well, if I've got to be the shop window front, I got to live it.
Absolutely.
And never give in to excuse. I can't justify it. I have to live it with commitment. So I've been able to navigate that. For instance, let's say if I'm on the road, I'm driving, I'm going to freeze a lot of meals pre-prepared, and maybe in 2 days' time, in a cool box, they would have defrosted, but they're good for a good couple of days after that as well. As a backup, I'll always have like protein powder. There are a couple of clean protein bars out there that you can choose. 99.9% of them are really bad, but there's a few brands, especially now over the last year, that have come about. So that's an option. There's always some sort of backup that you can lean upon. But, as the age-old saying says, if you're not prepared, you're going to prepare to fail.
Okay.
So you've got to be prepared in that environment. If I am traveling overseas, I'll usually try to find a food prep company if possible. So I'll have food delivered to my hotel or to the Airbnb and whatnot. But like, we were in Germany this year. There's no such thing as a food prep company.
Really?
Yeah, because one of my friends who's the world's leading biodentist we went to visit, because he's into bodybuilding. And I said, why didn't you get food sent here? And he's like, there's no food prep company. I was like, bull crap, there has to be. And I contacted this guy that I know that just competed in the Olympia the year before, Jus. And I said, where do you get your food from? Because he's German. He's like, there's no such thing. I thought that was so bizarre. Because everywhere, like third world countries have food prep companies now. So it just makes it much more convenient.
That's interesting.
Much more convenient. Of course, just like you having a coffee out at the coffee shop as opposed to making it at home. It's going to cost more.
Absolutely.
But my time is money. I don't want the stress. And as you mentioned, as you get a little bit older, you think about the future and you're like, man, I got to continue to heal my future because the way that I'm going to go with the excuse, I'm just going to harm it,
This is going to be, just that alone, it's just, there's so many people, because I know, and I speak a lot about the veteran community because that's where my world's been involved with the military, law enforcement, especially these cops. They're sitting stagnant for so long, all day, and we talk to them, and the veterans that are on the road and traveling, and it's just, that's the biggest struggle. And even just dads, these guys that are out working their 9 to 5, and it's just so hard for them to find any type of good food source. And so, but I guess that's a huge problem it does, a lot of times could come down to cost. But you're talking meal prepping as far as freezing it all, and you're getting just a cooler that like obviously a bag cooler that you're just traveling with. And that's what helps a lot with that.
Yeah, for sure. And like, let's say if I'm taking an international flight, a lot of the time I'll put those frozen meals in my check-in luggage as well.
Okay.
So I've got my food for the flight. If dependent on the time zone I'm going in, I may fast during that flight because that makes the kind of hangover, jet lag a little bit easier. But yeah, there's always a way around it because like we've all been delayed. We've all had to spend overnight somewhere, and then
sure.
what are we going to do? Well,
Yep,
I ain't
stuck
gonna...
in a hotel at a, and you're just stuck at some shitty
Exactly.
hotel bar.
Yeah, yeah.
Eating chicken wings. Like it's like this is it, like. And I've been on this streak, and I've been good for I've been actually hitting my goals, got a routine down, and then now it's like everything just goes to shit. Has been one of my biggest problems.
And I think what a lot of the time, you mentioned the people that you deal with, like in the armed forces, military, whatever. When I started putting video series on bodybuilding.com back in 2009, I just had a huge influx of people from around the world in various camps following these plans.
Yeah.
And they would tell me what was the food that was available to them. And of course, it wasn't the best scenario, but having a visual perspective through these videos gave them a little bit more clarity and understanding of what they can achieve as opposed to what they don't have available to them.
Yes.
So that was good because, of course, a lot of these people have a very, very strong mindset. It was just the awareness and the education and the understanding that they were lacking. But once they got it, like I saw some amazing transformations from those people. You know, there's a guy that I know from Wales, Paul Rees, as his name is. He's about to go back to Libya. He's doing security work over there, and it's just been an absolute shit show there for some years. And it looks like it's going to continue to be for the next 5 years because he's going to do another 5-year contract. But, watching people like Paul just navigate through, lack of a better word, all these like minds, has just been very, very inspiring for me. And when I see other people's transformations, it isn't so much from the neck down, seeing the physicality train. It's the change in their mindset. And that's what's really inspiring to me, that keeps me accountable as well.
So let's back up. Fitness. You get in a bad wreck, and you're pretty much your racing career is done at 20.
Yeah.
What was the next step after that? What did you realize? Okay, because you're talking to healing, obviously building the muscle and the strength around that. And this is a big the big side of me that I'm curious with is because like I hurt myself. I'm probably going on 4.5, 5 years now. I was carrying a guy on my back, and we were coming down a mountain. He's a double amputee. I'm carrying him on, down the mountain. We just went on a huge hunt, and he shot an elk, and it was incredible.
Yeah.
But I'm hiking him down, and I slipped, and I thought I threw my back out at the moment. But like I have this guy on my back that's missing both legs, got blown up in Afghanistan. Like how do you bitch, right? So I'm just gritting teeth. We get him to the truck, and I'm like, oh man, you've obviously hurt yourself enough. When you're hurt, and you're just like, okay, this is serious. Not like, oh man, I pulled something. I knew I majorly messed up something. After 8 months or so of chasing it and going to all these people and chiropractors and specialists, come to find out I twisted my pelvis. And I've been chasing that ever since. And I've just been in chronic pain. I mean, if you watch me sitting here, I'll shift. I can't sit still. And it's just, I constantly... So I want to back up with you, and then how you even got launched into the fitness world, and then how the evolution to where you're at now with biohacking. So you get hurt, okay, you got to build the muscle around it, because obviously there's chronic pain runs rampant in our world of guys that fitness guys, law enforcement, military, blue collar workers. How did you take that path and start learning or got educated on, okay, I need to build everything around it? Because I feel like if you go to the chiropractor, like, cool, let me snap, crackle, pop you, off you go. And then it doesn't actually, your body pulls itself back to the original injury. I feel like, at least with me, I'd go and get worked on. Within a few days, I'm right back. And then I'm starting to work on really my mobility, flexibility is what's really been helping me lately. So I would love to hear your journey on after an injury and realizing like you're 20 years old. That's scary to be ending a career at 20.
Yeah. And I extended it, just in a stupid manner where, okay, I started getting alleviated of the pain in my back, but I didn't have a sponsorship anymore. I'd packed that in. So downhill mountain bike racing had just started really coming in.
That's just as bad.
Yeah, but I didn't think it was.
Yeah.
And, you had guys like Steve Peach, Sean Palmer, Missy Giovio, all these top people racing. And I just thought it was so badass. It was so cool, and these tracks that you'd be hurtling down, they were gnarly. They were gnarly. But now when I look at the sport today compared to then, that is next. I wouldn't even attempt some of the things those guys are doing now, jumping over these 40-foot crevices.
On a basic course.
It's gnarly.
There's 10-year-old kids ripping backflips over these things. And I'm just like...
Evolution is scary.
At every sport, it's been absolutely wild to watch.
Yeah, but because I felt that I'd lost my identity because I'd been racing motocross for so long. And that's when I felt that I was able to do something good with my life. I was able to excel at something because I flunked at school. I hated school, didn't want to be there. So this is made me feel good, made me feel special that I could actually accomplish something. So when I didn't have that, and I started to get alleviated of the pain in my back, I started doing the downhill mountain bike racing, but it was now me showing up to these races with my buddies. So I'm getting hammered, I'm getting drunk, I'm doing drugs, full on now. And thinking, okay, I'll just leave my brain on the start line and go for this. But, it doesn't work like that because you are going to, pilot, you are going to hurt yourself. And you're not necessarily going to be racing at the best of your abilities when your reaction time is so much slower now, as you get a little bit older and you're a little bit more fragile. So I kind of packed that up after a couple of years, but I continued going further into the drug and alcohol hole.
Really?
Yeah.
How so?
Big time. It was just, I was very easily influenced.
Okay.
And, I knew it didn't sit well with me. It definitely wasn't sitting well with my family. As much as I was trying to hide it, I couldn't hide it. And I think, every Monday I'd say, I'm not doing it again for, after a while.
Never drink
but then
again.
I'd get a call on Thursday. I'm like, okay, I got to be in it, And then it would just start all over again. And this is like the early 90s when the rave scene, late 80s, early 90s, when the rave scene had really started to propel itself in the UK.
So ecstasy was your...
Of course.
It was your choice or what? Okay.
Yeah, ecstasy, and, a lot of other things, a lot of psychedelics, acid, mushrooms, a lot of weed, and it got to the stage where, I was smoking the weed like every day. Mm-hmm. I'd go to work. Smoking weed. How I did that, I don't know. I couldn't even think about it now, But everybody's different. But that was just kind of the hole that I was in, and I had a great time.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. I had such a good time. And I wouldn't change anything, because maybe that wouldn't have mapped out the course of my life today to be here, to be with my wife or whatever.
Yeah.
So those are just all experiences. But then I got arrested by the cops, and even though I'd moved out of home, my OG address was still my parents' place. So I'm handcuffed to there's a cop.
What'd you get arrested for?
For drugs, possession of drugs.
Really?
Yeah, in my car.
And this is still in Wales?
This is in Wales.
How serious is it over there? Is it equal to the U.S., as far as seriousness and ecstasy, or is it even worse?
Well, I didn't have ecstasy. Luckily, at that time, I just had weed.
Oh, okay.
I was lucky, but I had a decent amount of it. And so they said that, that they'd gained a warrant to search my house, which was my parents. And I'm like, oh, my God. Because I know my dad's can be pretty gnarly,
So your parents have no idea what's coming?
No idea until like 5 or 4 o'clock in the morning. There was a knock on the door and I'm handcuffed to this huge copper, And
they walk you up with a warrant? And
Yeah, and then they go into my room and whatever, and they found which was my room, but still a lot of my stuff in there. They found a bong and found some other pieces of paraphernalia, and and it was at that moment, just looking at my dad's face, and I knew exactly what was coming without him having to say a thing, and that's when I thought, I just cannot live this life.
Were you pretty close with your parents?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
for
then
sure.
it hits even harder. So it's not like you're some troubled kid that grew up and
No. I was always
Yeah.
pretty good, you know.
that's even worse. I feel like, especially when you truly let your dad down. Like
Yeah.
that's for the guys that have. I'm really close to my dad, and if you let him down, you're like, all right, like that never happening again.
Yeah.
So that was your aha moment.
That was my aha moment for sure. That was the tipping point that allowed me to have the accountability to kind of turn things around and change.
I feel like that's a pretty good one, though. I mean, if that was rock bottom in a way,
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
was.
you hear other guys' stories, and they're way. I mean, they lose everything before they wake up.
Oh yeah, like I know a lot of my friends within that circle aren't here today. You know, one of them's locked up.
No kidding.
Yeah, because you know sometimes it does affect. You know, different drugs affect people's brains, and
For sure.
You know I guess I don't know. The synapses or whatever it may be, where they just, even when they're not on drugs, they're just not themselves now. And I noticed that with a couple of people, how they would change over time. Either I was in denial, but I don't think it happened with me, but I saw it in other people.
Oh, 100%.
And who knows, it could have possibly happened further down the line had this incident not happened. So then I decided, okay, I'm going to go back to the gym, start working on myself again, because I did feel better mentally because I was alleviated of the physical pain that I was going through. And because I'd lost a lot of weight by this point. I was like skin and bones because I wasn't eating. I was doing drugs. You know?
If you don't mind me asking, is that a big reason why you were were you in a lot of pain? Because then I asked because I know somebody personally that was Supercross racer, and he's broke, I think, 57 bones, collarbone, dozens of times, both of them, and now it's a battle for him.
Yeah, it's normal to do the collarbone, to do your wrists, to do your ribs, to do your ankles. It's very normal.
then
It's not a matter of if, it's just when.
And then you get into that chronic pain. Was that a lot of? I mean, so you were feeling good physically in a way, I guess, without the alcohol, but then, I mean, obviously mentally, it's taken its toll. Was that what you were chasing, or was it just the party scene in general?
It was both. It was the party scene. It was an escape because I didn't have purpose. I didn't have any direction in my life. I didn't know what I wanted to do. You know, at that point, I was working at, where was I? BSW. Yeah, it's like a sawmill factory.
Okay.
I was like a trainee engineer, both a mechanical engineer and precision engineer. But I knew it just wasn't what I wanted to do. I was at college as well. And I just didn't know what I wanted. Even though the crazy thing is, from a very, very young age, even when I was racing motocross, I'd buy bodybuilding magazines because that was like a comic book for me, even though I had no interest in bodybuilding. And I had to keep my weight as low as possible for motocross.
Yep.
But I just enjoyed that. And I don't know if that planted a seed. But then I thought, okay, I know that you're definitely, I recognize I'm an all or nothing character in certain instances. You know, I'm all into getting hammered, wasted, or all into just being on the straight and narrow.
Which could be really scary.
Yeah, it's like a white knuckle ride. You just don't know what's coming next.
You just hope it's the right path. I have a couple buddies that are, when they're in, they're in. If it's drinking, gym, women, car, I mean, it's just, it's like, bro, and they go all in. That could be a scary path.
Yeah, it can be good and it can be bad.
If you channel it, absolutely.
Yeah, so anyway, I purchased this newspaper. It's called Muscle News. And I saw some bodybuilding shows at the back, and there was one at this place down near Merthyr Tydfil in Wales. And it was like just over a year away. And I thought, okay, I'm going to enter for that.
Really?
So I entered for it.
With zero experience before? I mean, obviously
zero.
Just whatever gym.
Nothing whatsoever. I was just training at the college gym. And during that time, literally like 2 months after, there was a really, really good college course in my local town that allowed you, it was a 3-year course, but you'd be internationally recognized as a health and sports therapist. So that could be massage, it could be personal training, weight training, coaching, physiotherapy, blah, blah, blah. So I thought, I'm going to sign up for that. So I did that at the same time and started working a couple of jobs to kind of support it, you know, working at a bar, working on a door and things like that. Yeah. And luckily, through that, because this was a passion that I really wanted to submerge myself into, all of a sudden, what I wasn't able to retain in school whatsoever, I thought I was dumb, stupid. I was
Now all
able
of a
to
sudden
retain this.
because
Yeah.
you're able to relate to it. It's engaging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was like an aha moment for me. I'm like, wow, I'm actually doing pretty good at this. And because you're very frustrated in school, you no idea what's wrong with you.
Yeah.
The teachers don't give you any advice, like definitely not in our school anyway. You just thought as like stupid. And that led to a lot of frustration, So if I read something now and I can't understand it, I get very frustrated. It's kind of like some form of PTSD. I don't know what it is, But I'm like, I don't want bloody anything to do with it. Don't try to explain it to me. Delegate, And so I did this college course, and I'll go back. I did the bodybuilding show, but I had no idea back then there was such a thing as enhanced bodybuilding and natural bodybuilding. I was looking at the people in the magazines like Dorian Yates and Lee Priest, and I was thinking, okay, I could do that.
Dorian Yates was one of my legends when I was in like my peak fitness. That dude was a machine. Like how he trained is what I time under tension and all that stuff. I love Dorian Yates.
Yeah, absolute intense. Yeah, I've become very good friends with Dorian over the years.
That's awesome.
And so when I competed in this show, I noticed backstage, I'm like, damn, I'm like the smallest person here. What am I doing? But I was able to get second place in that show because I was just shredded. I just went 0 carbs for like 8 weeks. I was hallucinating at the end. I didn't know what I was doing.
Completely wrong.
Yeah, I had no idea. I
coach.
think the majority of the size that I'd put on that time, I probably lost when I got ready. But I was very, very lean. And I remember one guy in particular who won his category, I think it was the Masters, he was saying, it's like, what did you use to like dry out? And I was like, well, asparagus and some, went 5,000 milligrams of vitamin C or something. And he's like, no, what diuretics? And I didn't know what he was talking about, But then after that, I realized, okay, there's natural, there's tested, and there's untested. Okay, I don't frown on either, but I definitely want to go the more natural routes. I've got no interest in being a freak. But I love going to watch freaks. I would never go to a natural bodybuilding show to watch. It's boring to me. I want to see something that's unattainable. That I like that aspect of it. And so then I got my qualifications in college. And then I thought, okay, that's my ticket out of here, because I was still encouraged and certainly influenced by the drug scene, by the alcohol, by the partying. And I thought the only way that I can get on the straight and narrow is just to completely change my social setting and my friends and whatnot. So I got a job then working. I remember this company called Steiner came round to the college, and they're talking about how you could actually get sent onto a cruise liner and be a personal trainer or a massage therapy. So I was like, sign me up.
Get me out of here.
Yeah, and within like 2 months, I was then porting out of Fort Lauderdale on cruises around the Caribbean. And
oh my God, how was that experience?
It was good, but it backfired.
Yeah,
Turned out to be a bigger party on there than it did at home. No drugs, but just a lot of alcohol. A lot of alcohol. It's tax-free. You're in the middle of the ocean. You're given this like card, which is your room key basically, where you can put everything on there. So it just, and everybody else, with, the staff was drinking as well. So it was just too easy for me to get influenced again.
How long did that last?
8 months. 8 months. So I cut the contract, and I met this person while I was on there. She was my boss, actually. And she was going back to Australia. And she said, why don't you just come over here and visit, And I think I was in London at the time. I was in London, and I thought, well, why not? I'd love to go to Australia. I'd saved up a decent amount of money when I was on the cruises, because I had no idea that Americans tipped. I'm like, great, I'm living off the tips here. This is awesome. And so I went over to Australia, and within 24 hours, I was able to get a job on a gym floor, putting the weights away and cleaning up and all that sort of stuff.
Where in Australia?
Sydney.
I love Sydney.
I love it, yeah. So this was North Sydney.
Okay.
And then from there, I went and watched a natural bodybuilding show because I'd never seen one before. And there was a guy there called Mark Costanti that was guest posing, and he looked like an absolute freak. You know, striated, veins all over his abs. I was like, there's no way this guy's natural. He can't be, you know. But he later became my training partner. And that's when I realized, okay, I'm living under a very short ceiling here. And this guy has just like blown the roof off.
Okay.
And this is what it takes to kind of live like that. You have to really take yourself into dark places, and this is how you live your life.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, I really want to try this, compete in natural bodybuilding. And so as I'm doing my cardio in the morning, I'm putting these trifold leaflets through people's doors advertising one-on-one training. I can come to your home, meet you on the beach, meet you in your park, etc. I didn't offer like just personal training, like buy a pack of 10 or anything. It was like you either sign up for 12 weeks or you sign up for 18 weeks, dependent on where I feel that you're at. If you're a little overweight, then yeah, you may need 18 weeks. So I had that commitment because I really wanted to get before and after pictures from these people to utilize as my marketing.
Because that's what sells.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
for
anybody
sure.
can
People are
just
visual.
claim a coach, but I mean, when you're seeing results, that's when people are like, okay, yeah, this is what I want.
Yeah. So then I decided to buy myself, you know, some boxing gloves, pads, kettlebells. Had these, I don't know if you remember the Total Trainer that Chuck Norris used to advertise on TV. I bought one of them, throw that in the trunk of the car. So I'd show up at people's
No kidding.
houses on the beach or whatever. It was cool. I loved it. So I was no longer now had to work at the gym. I'd created...
So you're doing in-home training. You're showing up at people's houses, bringing everything in, working them out for 30 minutes to an hour, whatever, then off to the next one?
Yeah, the majority was always outside in a park or
Okay.
on the beach. Though.
Okay.
And what I'd always do, I'd have like a sandwich board. Wherever I was training people, I'd have a sandwich board there with leaflets. So people could see
That's
and
smart,
pick up,
man,
pick
smart.
up a leaflet. And I just wanted to get ahead. And then after a couple of years of just saving up, my dream was always to have a gym, have my
Okay.
own gym. So after 2 years, managed to purchase a gym that was half MMA and half like personal training studio.
You're still in Sydney.
Still in Sydney,
And
yeah.
how old are you at this point?
This would have been 2002. I'm 50 now. Someone do the math.
Yeah, I was
I've
a
got
Marine.
dyscalculus.
Kill that fan. Yeah, you're asking a Marine. No way, not happening.
How old was I in 2002? Everyone's stuck on it. I'm that old. Anyway, let's say I'm 28.
Yeah.
And so I got the gym, and I tell you what, that was the worst decision I ever made, because
Really?
now I'm working such long hours. I didn't really know how to delegate and find the right staff. And, I was literally opening the doors at 5 a.m. in the morning and closing at 8 o'clock in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
It was gnarly. And, I'm trying to find the enthusiasm to train myself, which is a little bit difficult. But I did it. Did it for a couple of years, competed in some shows and did very, very well. I kept on getting second all the time, though. But after I got second, instead of trying to go back and win that very same show, because the top three would usually qualify for like the state titles, the national titles or whatever, I'd always go into that next one. So I'd get a second again and a second again.
Yep.
And then as I qualified, they chose me to go to the world titles, which was in Canada. And I got second there as well.
So you're like, you can't break the second place
Yeah, I was
curse.
like, man, give me fifth. Give me sixth. I don't want second. No one is so close,
Yeah.
But anyways, is what it is. But I loved that. I loved having something to work towards. So life wasn't so much of a white knuckle ride.
Yep.
And I was able to stay on the straight and narrow. And I just felt like I was succeeding at something. Every time I left the gym, I felt so much better. My mental stability was better. I didn't have so much frustration or anger. And that felt really, really good. At this time, I wasn't looking into the longevity aspect. I just figured, okay, this is healthy. I'm eating clean. I'm taking the right supplements. I'm not doing drugs. This is healthy. It wasn't until years later I realized a lot of these things weren't healthy that I've been able to change since then. But then 2005 came, and the year prior to that, I'd started thinking, I want to reach out to more people. How can I do that? So I started contributing to magazines. I purchased Merriam-Webster's book on journalistic writing, taught myself how to write, started submitting content.
Good for you.
And a friend of mine, Gary Phillips, he taught me photography because he was working as a photographer for like Flex magazine, Muscle and Fitness. And, you know, a lot of the cameras, you know, you get a 40D or 20D Canon, it'd pretty much do it for you.
Yeah.
You know, you just had to have a good eye. Because I quickly figured out that if I could submit content with pictures that accompany, the chances of them getting accepted is much higher. So I kind of did both. And after they started to stick and I started to get published, I thought, I actually enjoy this more than personal training, you know, in person, one-on-one, and I can't keep doing these hours. So I decided to kind of leave everything and risk a lot and move to Venice, California, to be in the bodybuilding mecca, just so I could cover a lot more. And I'd been submitting pieces for Muscle and Fitness and Flex international, but not the US, and the US was the hub. Okay. So that was the goal. I need to get a job there. So I just harassed the people at Weeder Publications. Luckily, Peter McGough, who was in charge here, he's from the UK. Two of the head photographers, Kevin Horton and Chris Lunn, they were from the UK. So I had a bit of an inroad there. I felt that we connected so much more. And after 6 months, I finally got a writers and photographers contract.
Really? How exciting was that?
Oh, it's great.
Because, I mean, what, are you on a work visa, or you're trying to get something at this time, or how did that work then?
Trying. So I was, you know, there's two of us from Wales. Flex Lewis, who's won the 212 Mr. Olympia like 7 times. He had just moved to Venice at pretty much like within the same month that I'd moved there. So we connected. I knew who he was. He recognized who I was. And we kind of connected, and both of us, neither of us had visas or athlete visas or anything like that. So we would drive down to Tijuana, get our passports stamped, and come back.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's what we did for a couple of years until we was able to get sponsorship, you know, from for me with like Weeder Publications and further. And it was still a shit show after that we can go into. I was chucked out the country some years after. But with that, you know, I'm working there full time and still continuing to compete in bodybuilding. And that was just the best time of my life. But after a while, like looking at how my content was being edited in Weeder Publications, and they wanted something not so hardcore and gritty, you know, like back then, a lot of the photos was like, say, of Ronnie Coleman, like they've sprayed him up, he's wearing sunglasses. I'm like, that's not real. Who's going to train like that, you know? Yeah, fake weights and whatnot, but not that Ronnie needed fake weights. So I decided, how hard can this be? I'll just publish my own magazine, you know? And so I started Caged Muscle magazine.
This is wild. Okay, all the pieces are coming together.
Yeah.
That was you.
That was me, yeah. Caged Muscle magazine.
Good for you.
And you know, what I want, because I absolutely, you know, it's called caged fighting back then. I loved MMA. You know, what I was actually doing a lot of kickboxing when I was in Australia. Loved MMA. So I thought, well, I want to cover both MMA and bodybuilding. So I'll just call it Caged Muscle, you know, and put the K on there, you know, based on my name, my name spelling. And, you know, it was great. I enjoyed it. I had really good people on board. Dorian Yates was one of my contributors. Lenda Murray, Bill Grant, you know, a lot of the guys from Arnold's era.
You had some hitters on there.
Yeah, I had some real good hitters. And they all loved the publication. Everyone loved it. There wasn't one person that had anything negative. However, I was no good at marketing. I'm not marketing. I'm not good at that. It wasn't my shtick. I wanted to do content. And that was it. So, you know, it's very difficult to make it financially viable, but I was just doing it as a hobby. You know, I was making money contributing content to other publications, and you know, websites had just started to come about then. Like, so I'm selling them to bodybuilding.com, I'm selling them to ProSource, I'm sending them to you know, a lot of other areas as well. So I was, you know, you'd get paid well back then.
So you're taking that money that you're publishing elsewhere and then putting it in the Cage.
Exactly, into my magazine, and that wasn't making money. It wasn't making money, but I just absolutely loved it. But I kept it up for 2 years and then decided to kind of get rid of it, because at that time, Ryan DeLuca reached out to me and asked if I wanted to come and interview to be the editor-in-chief of bodybuilding.com, because I'm giving them content, I'm covering shows for them, and I would always get my content online quicker than like Muscular Development or Flex Magazine, and they had a team of people. So he really, really liked that. So I interviewed for the job, and that's what brought me up to Boise in the end of 2007. And it was a good time. There was only like maybe 30, 35 of us in the office.
How was it in the beginning days? I've heard some crazy stories. Like, it was just wild and fun until
it was.
Yeah.
It was. It was wild. You know, especially when we'd go to events, you know, and you know, once everybody had done their work that needed to be done, you know, a lot of people would just have a major blowout, and sometimes it was just over the top.
How so?
Over the top. Well, I'm not going to name any names,
Yeah,
but like
I
remember, like in Germany after FIBO, there was a strip club there, and a couple of the guys from BBCom are actually on stage as well, you know, and getting chucked out, just things like that, you know.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. No one got into any real trouble.
Yep.
A couple of them did and got let go, but you know, it's the nature of the game. But it was great. It was a very good, tight community. No one really knew where this thing was going to go, but DeLuca he's definitely a visionary. He knew exactly where the company was going to go, and you know, he didn't really bow down to any other companies that were bigger than his in order to meet their expectations. He was just on, you know, a single track road, and nothing was going to stop him.
Yeah, that was a machine for a long time.
Yeah, like within a few years, now there's like 500 people working there. You know, it was just a revolving door. I didn't recognize half the people. Half the time I'd go into the, you know, cafeteria, I didn't know half the people, because it was just growing so quick, and these people weren't from Boise. They were all getting flown in.
Yeah.
You know, so it was a really, really good time to see that happen and be a part of it. And I was a part of it up until, you know, so I'm going to a lot of the events, covering the bodybuilding shows and doing what I do as well, and just managing the team. And, you know, we're putting out so many articles and videos, and I started doing video trainers myself, where someone would follow me every single day for like 12 weeks on how to burn fat, how to build muscle, how to get ready for an Ironman, whatever, you know.
Is that exhausting?
Yeah, it's a huge undertaking, because the thing is, you've got a camera in your face every single day for 12 weeks, you know. You're like, geez, if you're having a bad day, it's like, well, I still got to bloody show up and do this shit, you know.
I mean, you're fully committed.
Yeah, you're in. Like, I remember the first one that I did, within the first, I think, 4 or 5 weeks, I got pneumonia, and I was like, well, I can't stop, can I? You know, I got to carry on. I've got this commitment. I'm, you know, third or fourth way through it. You know, I got to continue. And it just is what it is. Like in another video trainer, I tore my lat on the second day of training. I've only ever had 2 injuries in the gym. The rest have been outside. And I didn't tell the videographer. I didn't tell anybody. I just thought, no, I'm going to have to carry on somehow and just train around this.
With a torn lat.
Yeah, I told my dad, and that was it. Because I just didn't want any sympathy or anyone to bring attention to it. Because then if you bring attention to it, you think about it, then it's worse than what it really is. And I much prefer to kind of be in denial of certain things like that. You know, it's like, it'll be fine. Because I think part of the way of healing is the mindset.
Absolutely.
You know, big time. You know, you invite that positivity. It's not going to be as bad as other people think it may be. And usually you're okay.
And it's funny you say that, because, you know, when you tell yourself, like, I'm going to be laid out for 8 weeks, so I'm always, fuck, no, I'm not. I'm going to be up way before that.
Yeah,
you know? It's
exactly.
Like, I could be up and running in 4 weeks. You know?
Sure.
Or, hey, you got to take it easy for X month. No. Because I feel a huge battle of recovery is the mental side of it. Because if you're laying there, okay, 8 weeks, I got to be in this brace, and I just got to take it easy, and then you know it, then you're in it 8 weeks. But if you're like, okay, I'm starting to feel a little bit better today, I can move more. And then you just slowly, at least that's who I am as a person. It might not always be the best decision. You know, I've shattered my whole hand and wrist one time, and I was all casted up, and I was like, I'm over this. And I was like, I feel I'm good. And I cut that thing off at work, and I probably was a little soon, but I took it easy, and I was like, I can't afford this anymore. Like, I have to be up and moving now.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy to watch like the sympathy route and how long it takes to recover, how long everything takes to heal versus, hey, nope. I'm not going to accept that.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I think we consider ourselves to be way more fragile than what we are.
100%.
Really, on a physical aspect, for sure.
100%.
You know, people treat each other like bone china. Like, if it breaks, it's okay. We can fix it. If it tears, we can fix that too. And with today's technology now, and what we've got available to us, it's like, man, you can really heal. You know, I don't know if you've heard of peptides. Like, you know, BPC 157, body protective compound, and then you've got stem cells. You know, usually I head overseas for them because they're much more efficacious than what you can get in this country. But I found things like that have just been very, very healing. Not so much that it completely fixes like the old injuries, but the symptoms are much, much less because I don't want to slow down. I have no plans on slowing down. You know, like I tore my tricep a few years ago, 68% off the bone.
Oh my God.
Snowboarding. But I'm like, well, I'm still going to go and snowboard.
Yep.
What can I do to ensure that I can be optimized? So, had surgery, obviously, you know, to reattach the tendons. But
how did that feel?
When I
what
tore
were you
it,
doing? Yeah, when you tore it.
My wife was filming me, so I was probably showing off.
Always when a camera's out.
So she said, "I'm not filming you ever again." Well, I ragdolled it down in this powder, you know, and it was a complete whiteout. And I'm very, very light sensitive.
Okay.
Very light sensitive. So I couldn't see anything, but I'm still kind of plowing down, and I've just ragdolled it. But I think I may have partially torn it prior, like a month before, you know, because I was having some issues there. I just didn't know the severity of it because I got quite a high pain tolerance. And then as soon as I ragdolled it, I felt something there, you know, I heard something. And then when I felt it, I'm like, man, my tricep's just hanging off here. And I said to my wife, I said, can you feel that? She couldn't really tell, but I knew that it'd come off. But I knew there was nothing that we could do about it. And this happened on, was it Valentine's Day? Yeah, it happened on Valentine's Day. And I'd already made a reservation at this place in Jackson Hole, and they had bone marrow, and I love bone marrow on the menu. So I'm like, well, we're not canceling that. So when we went back to the hotel, I managed to get one of those ropes, you know, that's, you know, that you get on robes.
Okay.
And just strapped my arm straight, just so obviously I wouldn't knock it into or anything or hurt anything. So we had the dinner then. And then following when we came back to Boise, I went to see Dr. Caleb Redding. I don't know if you And he's like, you're screwed, man. So had operation, and they had to drill a couple of holes through the ulnar and humerus just to reattach everything. But mentally, I'm fine with that. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
It's just inconvenience. That's what I don't like, the inconvenience. And fair dues, the surgery hurt a lot more than tearing it, you know, when I come around, you know, having a couple of holes drilled. But then a year later, it still hadn't healed as I had hoped.
Okay.
I'm still dealing with probably about 70% discomfort, and 30% strength has come back, which isn't much. And then I had stem cells, went to Mexico, had stem cells, and within 6 months, great, perfect.
Now, when you're doing stem cells, how many treatments? Is it a one-time thing, then you wait for it, or are you going every month? How does the stem?
No, one shot. So
that's it.
Yeah. So you'd have it injected acutely to the areas of concern. So while I was down there, I was like, yeah, I've torn my shoulder. I'll have that done. I got torn ACL and meniscus in my knee. I'll get that done. Get topped up, but then have an IV to follow, because if you do have areas of concern or inflammation that you may not be conscious about, then the IV will take care of that.
No kidding.
Yeah, so the localized will not dissipate or home in on other areas of concern, because you want it all localized.
For sure.
Yeah, so that's what it was, just a one and done for that. I don't need to have that done again there. I don't feel, anyway.
But you would recommend it?
For sure.
Really?
I've sent so many clients there.
Really? And it's all clean, good clinics, no problems?
For sure. Like all these clinics that you find in Panama, Costa Rica, Mexico, they're all run by Americans.
And I've heard that. I've had buddies that have gone and traveled and done things like that. And they're like, either they're Americans or their doctors came and studied here.
Yeah.
Got their doctorate, learned everything in the States, and they take it back to Brazil, South America, wherever they are. So it's really just... it's American doctors down there at the end of the day that are just either locals there or have moved down there.
Yeah. And, since then, I've got to know Scotty and Ed Clay, who own CPI.
Okay.
They are the official sponsors of the UFC. So the UFC send their guys to CPI.
Okay.
And, Ed's such a good guy, really knowledgeable fella, and you know that they're doing it all for the right reasons. It isn't just for financial remuneration, because they're both well off anyway.
So would you recommend just an average guy that's just, been through the shit his whole life? Is
Everybody.
it good just to go down and just do it? Especially me turning 40. Be smart just and see how much better I feel after. I mean,
100%. Like
Really?
I tried to talk my dad into getting it so many times, because he's dealing with some things, like he should have probably had a hip replacement 15 years ago, but too stubborn. But I think it can be, because as we get older, our ability to produce stem cells is much, much less. That's why, as a kid, bruise, next day it's gone. Because we're healing, we got that many more stem cells. But as we get a little bit older, and if you've drunk a lot of alcohol, if you stay up late, or don't sleep much, maybe you've done drugs or had a lot of injuries, you're always taking an extraction of those stem cells. So how much is left in that bank? So that's when we
Interesting.
go to somewhere like Mexico or Panama or whatever to say, I'll have those stem cells that were donated, because a lot of these people have, obviously, just like in the US, you have the choice to have your kids' stem cells banked. Now, they don't necessarily need all of those, and some places will bank those stem cells for those people for free, should they want to sell some to a participant, i.e. me.
Interesting.
And
So what's a treatment? I mean, you don't have to give me your price, but what's a treatment if I want to go down and get injected in certain areas, and then the IV? I mean, what are you looking at on average?
so it all depends, obviously, on the severity. So, this is how it works. You have a consultation, and then you have a consultation with the surgeon. The surgeon will need to see your x-rays or MRIs to see how much soft tissue damage you have. And then based on that, they will say, this is how many stem cells you need, and this is how much it costs. Or maybe you're not even a candidate. You can't take stem cells, because my wife, she's not a candidate. And but you're looking at $20,000 minimum.
Got it.
But that same $20,000 minimum there would cost around $50,000 here. However, you're not going to get the efficacy here. They're not allowed to harvest them. They can't expand the stem cells in this country. It's just silly laws, But, it's just the fat of the land. Like, I had stem cells once here. I'm not naming the company. But it didn't do anything for me. I'm not saying it doesn't do anything for everyone, but it didn't do anything for me.
But you saw a drastic change when you went to Mexico.
Yes.
How long does it last, or is this something that it's good? I mean, obviously you said it's a one and done deal.
Yeah.
Do you feel it immediately, or is it just over months of recovery? And
it's funny, because there's a friend of mine who's in Tulum, Michelle, and her mother, Joan, just had stem cells done 5 weeks ago. And Michelle reached out and said, because I referred them. She said, it's not worked. It hasn't worked. And I said, well, it's only been 5 weeks. It took me about 6 months to feel the complete efficacy of it.
Really?
It took me about that long, and that seems to be about the average. And, the hardest part is that you can't train for a good couple of months following, because if you are causing more trauma, through breaking down muscle tissue, the stem cells are going to go there now. And, same with, you want the inflammation, so you can't do ice baths, which is a killer for me. I love my ice baths. Can't do sauna. There's a few things that you are very, very restricted. You do cardio. That's good. So, with the first time I had stem cells, I decided I'll just, I need to do something. I'll get ready for an Ironman. So I did an Ironman. That was my kind of training, a lot of pool work, a lot on the bike, so that was fine.
Really? Damn. Because I know some guys, but they haven't got into depth about it. So I find that fascinating.
Yeah.
I want to know, because I feel like right now I have so much chronic pain.
I'd strongly suggest it.
Yeah.
If you can get some MRIs, there's a couple of ways of doing it. You'd be better off getting the MRIs here, to be honest with you, and then
submit them down there.
Submit them. I can make the contact, but it's not cheap, but it's the best money I've ever spent.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, it's your body.
Yeah,
You're
for
investing.
sure.
You're investing in your
And
longevity.
I'm sure you're no plans in slowing down. You're still going to be riding
That's my
ATVs
problem.
and whatnot.
I'm all gas, no brake on
Yeah.
everything. I mean, the wreck it didn't slow me down, but it opened my eyes.
Yeah.
Like, okay, risk versus reward. I kind of plan those out a little bit better now.
Yeah.
I think of that, but as far as slowing down, absolutely not. Like
Yeah.
I feel like when I slow down, I'm done.
Exactly.
I'm done.
Exactly.
I have to keep it going, and so that's where I have a lot of curiosity. That, and then the peptides and all that stuff, which I want to get into. So, let's see, where were we? Tore your tricep off. Got surgery. Got that fixed. What was next for you? I mean, so you're still at bodybuilding.com at this point?
No. This only happened a few years
Oh,
ago.
no shit.
I left BBCom at the end of 2010. I was still working for them for about a year and a half after that remotely. What happened, 2010, it's a week before the Mr. Olympia, and we've got a big crew going down there. I'm in charge of the content side. And the admin team at BBCom were asking for my visa extension, blah, blah, blah. And I put them in touch with my lawyer. And they contacted me and said, there's something suspicious going on about this lawyer. He's not giving us these numbers and this one, blah, blah, blah. All to find out that this lawyer of mine had not filed for my extension. So I'd been in the country literally for over 11 months illegally.
And you had no idea.
No idea.
And you're paying this guy.
Yeah, of course.
Typical lawyer, huh?
Yeah, well, that lawyer.
That lawyer.
And so I was told then, look, if you leave the country by the time the 12 months are up, there's a very strong chance we can get a waiver signed and you can come back into the country. If you leave it more than a year, you automatically have a 5-year ban. That is it. You can't come back. So I'm like, oh, wow. Well, I'm going to have to go down to the Olympia because that's still my commitment. So I got to fulfill that. And then I literally come back and packed what I had to go into a suitcase and then flew back to Wales to kind of, submit a waiver to get back into the country.
How long does that take? Or how long can that take?
We thought it would probably take about 6 weeks, but it took 2 years. Yeah.
You couldn't come back for 2 years?
Couldn't come back.
So you're over here starting a whole life.
Oh, yeah. I had a home. I had 2 investment properties in Nampa, had pets, everything.
What did you...
It was gnarly.
2 years?
Yeah. So during that time,
God.
Luckily some friends came together. My parents even flew over here to put all of our, my stuff in storage, basically.
Yeah.
And, found a couple of people from BBCom to take over, the pets, and that was it. And just had I went and submitted paperwork, which I had paperwork from, people like Dorian Yates, from Joe Weider, from Simon & Schuster, the publication house, because I'd written a book at that time as well. And it was so weird. Every time I'd go to the immigration, with all my paperwork, I'd be like, no, need this, need that. And I had so much paperwork. Apparently, I had enough for a family of 4. But I've been
It still
told...
took that long.
Yeah, I've been told that some of the people at the people at the immigration have more power than the president. If they've had a bad, shitty morning, if they haven't had their coffee in the morning, they'll just turn you away.
And that's just so they can completely just screw your life.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Just because.
The last time, because after you submit it, I think you had to wait like 3 months before you could go back again.
Yeah.
So it's just waiting. And I went in Ireland, I went in England, tried different places. And the last time I submitted it, it was the exact same paperwork that I admitted 3 months before. Because the lawyer said, there's nothing more we can give you. This is it. And they let me in.
Did they give you an excuse, or is it just a accept or deny?
Accept or deny, that's it.
So you don't even...
Don't know what to fix.
In 2 years, and you couldn't come back at all?
No, not at all.
Damn.
But during that time, because I'd recently flown to India because I'd released this book and I needed to go there for book release and signing, while this was happening and I'm back in Wales, I was in a supermarket. I had a phone call to say, hey, there's this guy. he is a huge Bollywood star. He read your book. He is, got issues with his back as well. He had a bulging disc. And he's just like smoking, he's eating, he's really out of shape, and he's got to get ready for this action role. There was like a trilogy, and this was the third of this movie. So I figured, okay, yeah, I'll chat with this guy, give him a consultation. And he really wanted training, so then I flew to India and transformed him over like a 9-week period. It was supposed to be 12 weeks, but he was easier to transform. So we did it in 9 weeks. That hit all the major like newspapers, news stations, stuff like that, because it was a very good transformation. So now all these other celebrities are wanting me to train them.
Over there?
Over there.
Is this how you started to blow up over in India? Because you're massive over there.
Yeah, it was BBCom to begin with,
Okay.
because there's a lot of traffic on BBCom from India. They wouldn't convert. They wouldn't even in the top 10 because it's so hard to get supplements into the country.
Okay.
But they just wanted to look at all the free content. But then, yeah, obviously training the celebs helped. And then, I just couldn't train all these people. So I started flying in other personal trainers like Neil Hill from the US here, Joe Tong, a couple of guys from the UK.
So you're the celebrity trainer for all these Indian actors and actresses.
Yeah.
Really? So you just fall into this
niche
because you got kicked out of the U.S.
Yeah.
that's
so I made well
that's
with
wild.
my time.
Yeah. Fortunately,
I had to abide. Yeah. And then during a lot of travel around the India, because we started qualifying personal trainers as well. Mm-hmm. And so with a lot of that travel, I was like, God, the gyms here are really bad, and not so much always like the equipment or anything like that, but just the way, personal trainers were treated. They weren't treated as professionals. They would do what the client told them. It was kind of weird. So I thought, okay, we have to create authoritative figures out of this industry. So that's when my business partner and I decided to start up a gym franchise there that we kind of considered more like academies, but they are gyms. And because we could definitely see a void there. And we wanted to get, obviously, good equipment as well, great infrastructure, make sure they're definitely more expensive than any other gym there, but we want to provide a better service. So that's how that started at that time as well.
Interesting.
So I was very busy while biding my time to get back into the US, and once everything, at the end of 2013, just before the Olympia, I was allowed back into the country. So I thought, well, I'm not ready to move back just yet, but I'll go over for the Olympia and do all that, be at the booth, and because I'm not the editor-in-chief anymore at this stage, but I was still the face because of these video trainers were very, very popular.
Okay.
And I was still providing content. I even did a 12-week muscle building video trainer while I was in India. Got a great film crew together, and they submitted the content. I had to fly to Canada to do the overview videos with the BBCom team because I couldn't get back into the US. So we still made it work.
How's India?
Chaotic.
I feel India is like just pure wild chaos.
Yeah, it is chaos. There's parts of India that I absolutely love. It's mostly in the country, up towards the Himalayas. Like I've been heliboarding in the Himalayas. It's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal.
What is that like?
Oh, it's great.
Untouched.
Absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, you get dropped off, obviously, at the top of a mountain. You've been given like a CB radio, and you just call them when you hit the bottom. Well, they always have a mark. You have to find the mark, And it is just so much freedom. Really, really good. And then obviously there's places like Goa, really nice prestige beaches there. Okay. I'm just not into big cities, regardless.
Well, their cities are
next level, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you've traveled way more of the world, but I've been fortunate to go to a lot of cool countries. I feel there's nothing as far as population-wise, except for some of the Asian countries that are just, you can't breathe. I mean, it is just so overwhelming and just, between the little bikes and the carts and the people, it's
just noise. It's just
never ends.
Of course, the pollution's bad. Like we know places in Pakistan and like Delhi is the worst in India. But what gets me is the noise pollution, because everybody's on the horn all the time. Like, there's never no traffic. So that's the one thing that gets to me. So
What does that do to your psyche, like when you're there? Because obviously you're very in tune with your body, and I'm
Yeah.
sure you're in one of these major cities for even a couple of days, and you just can't hear a bird chirp. You just can't hear the wind blow. I mean, I feel like a guy like you, especially me, and I was talking about it not too long ago with my buddy. He's lives in he's a country, just works a ranch, and when he goes, like, even comes to Boise, he's like, a couple of days and it's too much.
Yeah.
I mean, do you start to feel yourself? I mean, I'm not saying like a form of depression, but does it start to affect you at all, where you have to get out and get out of the city at all, or you just grind it out?
I grind it out, but I have a couple of times in the past, in the early years, it did affect me, but it was a couple of contributing factors. Unbeknownst to me, I had mold toxicity at the time, it's like a neurotoxin, so it can affect you mentally. And the biggest symptom that I had was I just couldn't sleep. I was sleeping 3 hours a night for quite a while.
What?
Yeah, mold toxicity from a property that I was staying at in this place called, not Juhu, what was the other area? Called Bandra.
Okay.
I was training a celeb there, and I was downstairs in an apartment block there, and it's very, very humid in Mumbai, very humid. Like, appliances only last a couple of years there. And there was mold in this property, but I had no idea. Couldn't see any mold.
Yeah.
It was hidden. And I'd got what's called mold toxicity. So, as I mentioned, one of the symptoms was I just wasn't sleeping. So now I've just become really on edge. Really
Well,
on
it wears
edge.
on you. It breaks you down mentally and physically. I don't sleep. That's one of my biggest problems.
Right. Well, I've fixed that now.
How did you discover this?
It took a couple of years because
Really?
nobody could figure it out. I couldn't figure it out. I'd gone through every dietary, supplemental intervention, even started going through medication interventions. Nothing was working until I was recommended to go visit this person called Dr. Spanaug in Oldsmar, Florida. And when I visited him, he had me do 60 odd blood tests on the first day, and urine, stools, saliva, brain scan, everything. And then when he had everything in front of him and he explained the symptoms, without him asking what my symptoms were, he described me to an absolute T.
And you were like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
This guy knows.
Yeah.
I mean, that had to have been a huge sigh of relief then.
It was. I was just hoping that I could get detoxed or fixed from it. So I had to stay at his clinic for 6 weeks to go through a detoxification protocol. He would have had me there 6 months if he'd had his way, because there was just that much toxicity in me. And, I would...
Besides the mold, or was there other things, or was this the
Just
prime?
the mold. Just the mold,
It's a
yeah.
6 month 6-month cleanse?
Yeah, yeah. And I continued to do the cleanse myself to what I could. And eventually, I'd say probably about a year later, I felt that I'd kind of got it out of my system.
What's the cleanse consist of?
It's all sorts. So, I'd be doing an IV 5 times a week, and that would have ALA and glutathione and chelations, ingredients that would chelate to help bind the toxins so you could detox them out. Had to do colonic hydrotherapy 5 days a week as well. Just so much cleansing. Sauna every day. There was a huge list of supplements that I had to take during that time as well. But so going back to what you mentioned, how did I feel being in a city in Mumbai? Well, at that time, I was in Mumbai, Lucknow, Delhi, everywhere. But at that time, man, I was just not a good person to be around. I was if someone would stare at me more than, of course, looking at the way I do, a lot of people would stare at me. Someone would stare at me more than 3 seconds. I'd be like, what's your freaking problem? I was just that on edge, but I didn't recognize it at the time. And I would use this anger that I had in me as a fuel of energy for my workouts. I'm like, I don't care if I'm not sleeping. I'm still going to outwork you. I'm still going to out-train you. It was like that egotistical mentality. And I wasn't aware of myself or my surroundings until it was just too much, where I just wasn't sleeping.
Yeah.
The only way I could describe my sleep was having to get on a long haul flight in economy every single day, every single night.
That's hell.
You know, where I'd wake up and think, God, is it time to get up yet? I'd only been asleep for like 10 minutes. And that would happen every 10 minutes. I'd wake up, you know, it's just horrendous. And that's when I started seeking, you know, other people, alternate methods, like educating myself. I didn't know mold toxicity was even a thing. But now, because I've had it and being part of like the biohacking anti-aging community, I see it is quite common.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Here in the U.S.?
Yes. Yeah,
Really?
for sure. And it doesn't always have to come from, you know, what we consider mold in the walls.
Yeah.
Like the biggest carrier of mold that we consume is coffee. You know, the majority, vast majority, like over 95% of coffees have mycotoxins, mold spores in them because, you know, let's say, you know, you've just picked a lot of these, you know, coffee beans. A lot of them aren't necessarily dried out immediately. Maybe, you know, obviously if you got herbicides, pesticides, all that sort of stuff, but maybe they're not shade grown, maybe they're not single origin, they're coming from everywhere and they're not being dried out, much like the grains aren't being dried out once they go into the vats.
People have
you know?
no idea.
Yeah, so there's a lot of mold. And the thing is, our toxicity levels in the US are much lower than what they are like in Europe. So for instance, if something gets rejected in Europe, the US will take it.
She's the coffee drinker.
Oh, there you go. Well, there's great coffees out there. You know, I'm not sponsored by these people, but you've got Keon Coffee, you've got Fabula Coffee, you've got Danger Coffee. So they will all state that they're mold free. You know, they're tested. You know, you can go into their site and find their COAs.
Interesting. I had no idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, a lot, like chocolates will have it, wine will have it.
Really?
Yeah, so you have to kind of go down that rabbit hole of figuring out what to have, you know, having like a biodynamic rind, for instance.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's scary, too.
It is scary because, like, who doesn't drink coffee? Exactly. You don't?
I don't.
Oh, really?
I just had my first coffee with a guest, and he's a Marine, and the only reason I did is because he was a Marine, just like these guys. He's a Marine too, and, you know, to support him. So I love supporting veteran companies, but I had him on, and he's a local guy here, and he knows because he's tried for years. Like, let me send you some coffee. I'm like, I don't drink it. So all these companies will always send me coffee, and it's for the wife. You know, I'm like, here, let me know if it's good or not. No coffee, no caffeine.
Funny. Interesting.
I'm a water guy, pure water. And
That's
so
cool. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I do decaf if I have coffee.
Yep, I just had it though on one of our episodes. He had like the espresso.
Did you feel the caffeine hit from it?
Oh, immediate, because I'm just not a
I bet.
Even with your subs, because I got your pre-workout, and I was like, bro, I can't do caffeine. And
there's no caffeine in any of our pre-workouts.
Exactly, and that's why he was like, dude, it's perfect. And I'm like,
good.
all right, because if I take anything, because I've had such a hard time sleeping as it is.
Yeah.
I've tried so many pre-workouts, and Zach, he would, you know, try to get me to work out later afternoon or in the evening. I'm like, I can't. I physically cannot. Because one, I mean, if I take anything with a caffeine, it has to be very early in the morning. Because I'll just lay in bed and it just compounds on top of whatever my sleeping problems are already. And so, yeah, that's where I am a huge anti-caffeine guy. Like energy drinks when I drive. There's times because I guide in the fall, you know, hunting guide, and I'll buy like a Monster sometimes, but it's the sugar-free, all that stuff. It'll take me 2 days to drink it because I'll sip on it, and half the time I'll try to drink an energy drink, and I get tired and go to sleep. Like, it has the opposite effect on me. So I'm weird like that. Even in the military, you know, when it came to smoking, tobacco, dipping, I never did any of that stuff. I would just sunflower seeds and water. Yeah. That was it. And the guys I don't know if you've ever seen being overseas anywhere, they're called rippets. That's what we had a lot of those overseas. And that stuff was like crack in a can. I mean, dudes were literally like dying from this stuff over there.
No way.
Hearts were failing because they were taking that. They were drinking. They were mixing. You'll know this shit. It was No Explode at the time.
Yeah. BSN.
All those crazy ones that they had.
Huge amount of caffeine and various other stims, sometimes ephedrine.
That was a big one, and those guys were chugging them with these rippets, and I mean, the guys were dying in their bed. I mean, they were just over there, and so I've always been weird like that. My dad ruined coffee for me, and I went on to it about a podcast because we'd drive in the morning to go hunting, and he'd always buy this like a French espresso shit, and I thought it smelled absolutely horrible, and we were on a windy road to go to our hunting spot. And I would just get nauseous. So every time I'd get nauseous sitting in the back of the car or the back of the truck, and I would smell this coffee. So my mind just ever since I was a kid would relate. So I smell coffee. I'm like, no, I'm good. So
I'm like that with tequila. I got absolutely wasted when I was about, I don't know, 19, 20 in Portugal on this really bad, cheap tequila. I can't smell it now. I just can't go near it.
Whiskey is another one. I was a young Marine. We were at Halloween, downtown San Diego in the Gaslight District on Halloween, where they'd block all that off. I showed up to the party late. I had to work that day. We got off, showed up. All my boys are wasted when I get to the hotel room. My boy hands me a handle of Captain Morgan. I take the lid off of it, popped it, and I just, boom. And I chugged like half this handle. And then I finished another big chunk of it before we even left. Don't remember. I almost got shot and arrested. I thought a cop was dressed in like a Halloween costume, and I go up and I grabbed his sidearms, my buddy said. It was like, this is a realistic costume, and I grabbed this dude, and this cop like palms my face and like throat chopped me and throws me to the ground, and my buddies are like, no, like, no, he's just fucked up. And I legitimately feel I had alcohol poisoning because, I mean, I threw up that whole entire night. The next day, we drove back to Oceanside. It was a Sunday because we had to get our haircuts. And right in Oceanside, there's a little barber shop, and across down the street, there's a fire department. I ended up just laying in the lawn, puking the whole entire time. Never got my hair cut. Come Monday morning, I was still puking. I couldn't even go to work Monday morning. My buddies covered for me. I legit feel I had alcohol poisoning. But ever since then, like, all my buddies, let's get some whiskey. Let's go have whiskey. I'm like, I smell whiskey or coffee, and I'm like, my body's, I don't care what I have to do. If I even just sip whiskey, I instantly get the spits, and I'm like, no, I can't do it.
Interesting.
Even if it's mixed, we just had, my wife had some chocolates, and it had like a rum or whiskey mix in it, and I was like, this isn't just like a plum chocolate, and she's like, oh, it's got bourbon or something. I was like, oh, I knew it. My body just rejects it.
Yeah, funny.
It's weird how you do that. Yeah, thank God it has never happened for like cheesecake or something.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll ever happen with that.
Yeah, something you enjoy. But I want to get into biohacking because obviously you being 50 years old, you look incredible.
Thank you.
And I feel like obviously, you know, I'm big into the sauna is huge for me. I've always been a huge sauna fan. I absolutely hate the one at the gym. I want to get my own because it just doesn't do it for me. I could sit in there for an hour and I'll sweat, but I don't feel that sauna where I'm just, you know, I feel like I'm flushing my system. Mm-hmm. I finally got the cow trough out back filled up. I love doing that. Benefits to, you said you're a fan of ice baths. Are they as beneficial as people say? Because I hear so many controversial things on it. Some people say it's more mental, and then some people are like, absolutely, it burns the, you know, specific fats and all that stuff. What's your take on ice bath and sauna?
Yeah, there's a lot of benefits. Like I have an ice bath and sauna at home. I was in it this morning. Yeah. And, the benefits of the sauna, and there's a lot of Finnish studies on the benefits of sauna. I think to quote one of the studies is that if you did sauna for like 25, 30 minutes, 5 days a week, you can decrease all-cause mortality by 43%.
Which is wild.
Yeah, phenomenal.
Wild.
Yeah, so it creates a lot of heat shock proteins, which helps repair your damaged proteins, your folded proteins, damaged DNA. There's a lot of benefits to it. Then obviously it'll help with growth hormone production. You can collate a lot of, detox a lot out of you. Mm-hmm. What I like to do is take some type of binder beforehand.
Like what?
So something like chlorella, something that's not too
what's chlorella?
Intrusive. It's just like it's like a green powder. It's a plant.
Okay.
And just have like a tablespoon of that before you jump in for about 15 minutes before you go in. Some people do niacin. I've done niacin as well. That will help with the blood flow to help collate a little bit better. And there are other types of binders, activated charcoal being one, but that can be a little bit harsh because it can deplete you of your minerals as well.
I mean, because that's what it's technically created to do, is to pull all of that, right?
Yeah, so it could be a little harsh. You could do that maybe once a week, but you'd want to make sure that you are hydrating and rehydrating your minerals at the same time. And then with the ice baths, I think there's a lot of benefits. I learned all about contrast therapy when I was in college in the 90s.
Okay.
You know, that's when we first started doing it. You know, we'd jump in the sauna and then we'd jump in the snow if it was snowing outside, etc. So I've always been into the contrast therapy, and of course it can help with inflammation. It can help with the browning of the fat to mobilize fatty acids, so it's easier for you to then burn fat. The more you're able to brown your fat, the more active it will be.
Interesting.
Yeah, so, but the main reason why I do it is just for mental stability.
Okay, thank you. Because I hear these guys, they're always talking this benefits. The two things that I've noticed is if you can convince yourself, especially here, I don't have the fancy covered and the water's flowing. When you're breaking 3 or 4 inches of ice, getting in that shit, the mental state that it sets your whole entire day in the mood. I mean, if you could convince yourself to do that, there's nothing in the rest of your day
that you can't do.
That you can't do. We used to do it when they were fighting, and right as we would get ready to leave, the day we're leaving, I'm like, hey, go get in the ice bath, and she would get in, and I'm like, if you can convince yourself to do this, I guarantee you, none of these other kids are mentally strong enough.
It's a great idea
to get in, and I'm like, that way you have that upper hand. You just did something that nobody else that you're going to fight against is doing. Especially kids down in Las Vegas, and then they show up, and you're looking, and you're like, there's no way that kid's getting an ice bath. And here she is. We're in the middle of February. I'm breaking 6 inches of ice. She's getting in, does her dunk, maxes out. Okay, let's go. Get dressed. Let's hit the road. And so that's where I felt the biggest benefit for me was the mental side. But then at the same time with the inflammation, and correct me if I'm wrong. So with my hips always, my hip being or twisted, my pelvis being twisted, I could almost pinpoint the inflammation in my body because it burns almost like aches where I can, like if I already have like that chronic pain in certain areas, when I get in, because I don't do any more than like 3 minutes for me. And like that's
perfect.
I'm good. I don't have anything to prove. 3 minutes, I'm about done. But I can feel like if I say you do like a hard leg day, my calves, I have the tightest calves on the planet. It is disgusting. This table has more flexibility than my calves. I get in and they're on fire. Is that the inflammation? Is that cold just shocking and helping with that inflammation?
Yeah, so that is quite normal. Like I don't feel it so much when I get in the ice bath. If I do cryotherapy, because of my injuries, I feel it's so much more cooler in those areas where I have inflammation. So it's quite normal for that. Of course, if it is more inflamed, you're going to have more blood flow. Maybe it's warmer. So the contrast of that is going to be more pronounced.
Got it.
But as far as the mental stability, we have our vagal nerve, and, that puts us in that fight or flight response.
Absolutely.
The more that can be like toned, the more stable that you'll be and not maybe as reactive or, just off the cuff, moody or whatever. So I don't necessarily feel that, hey, I feel $100 today. Mm-hmm. I just feel stabilized, where I'm not an arsehole.
Yeah.
And I do feel so much better for it. It's like having your AA batteries as well. And again, knowing that you're being harder to kill at the same time, you are being a little more relentless. And especially when you're doing it first thing in the morning, it's still dark outside. You're like, yeah, how many people are doing this? Mm-hmm. And it makes you feel good that you're doing something that other people aren't. And hopefully you're going to get results that they're not, because they ain't doing it. And it is a battle. It's like when my wife knows this, I have the ice bath at 32. It's freaking cold. Very, very cold.
Yep.
But, the colder it is, just like the harder your workouts, the better you feel after, and I just love that because, as you mentioned, there are going to be days that you don't want to do things, but you're much more empowered to do them, knowing that you've just done the hardest stuff first thing in the morning.
Got it out of the way.
Yeah, you got it out of the way, and it just has a transference effect onto so many other areas of your life as well.
That's awesome. I'm glad you recommend it because you hear, you get especially online and social media.
Oh, now it's become trendy, yeah.
Yeah, and then you see this. I think a lot of people just do it for the views, and they just go in and dunk themselves. But it's like when I'm doing, I'm like, okay, I've never posted about it. You know how it is. You see these guys, especially being trendy. Everybody's got to do, and day 63 of not missing an ice bath, like those guys, and it's good on them. I mean, there's times where you see them breaking. I mean, they're pulling out blocks of ice, and it's just that to me is the mental battle where I'm like, okay, like. We're good. Nothing is going to get in the way of today. Do you recommend doing it in the morning or at night? And the reason I ask is because there's times after you get out, you get that surge. For me, you're standing out back, it's snowing, and you're in your board shorts or whatever. You get that surge, but I feel that when I've done them at night, I've had two different reactions. One, it wakes your body up where it's hard for me to go to sleep, and then there's other times where it's some of the deepest like coma sleeps that I've ever had. Have you ever seen a difference in that, or
Yeah, I definitely prefer cool before bed. Some people like to have a nice warm bath, which is fine, but I prefer to have if I'm going to have a warm bath, I prefer that to be earlier in the day because that affects my sleep. My core temperature is just way too high. The balance that I've found is that do your 3 minutes in the morning.
Okay.
And if you're going to do it in the evening, just do it for 1 minute. No longer than that. It's too much, I feel. Your body's core temperature is way too cold, and it takes too long for it to heat up while you're trying to sleep because it takes a while to defrost.
For sure.
After 3 minutes, you're usually still pretty cold after a couple of hours. Just because I always finish with cold. So it takes a while to warm up. So I wouldn't suggest any more than 1 minute in the evening.
Okay, biohacking. I know there's a lot of people that follow me that are going to be like, what in the hell is biohacking? I don't know how deep you want to get into it, but I'm super curious into this. So as far as you want to go with it, I want to hear it all.
Sure. So, it's basically hacking your biology. Our biology is designed to be lazy. We go out and hunt, and then we store. We wait, we feast. And
wait for the next season.
Until next season, yeah, exactly. So obviously that's why a lot of people do find it difficult to maybe get up in the morning, go to the gym, get in the ice bath, whatever, because our bodies are designed to be kind of lazy. But, in the environment that we live today, it's very, very different to, just like 20, 30, 40 years ago. The food supply, we see supplements, the pollutants. Now we've got EMF, non-native EMF, Wi-Fi, etc. We're under artificial lights all day. We hardly ever get outside. We're working now in the morning while it's still dark. We get home when it's dark. So there's a lot going against us. So biohacking is using our ancestral wisdom, let's say grounding.
I was just going to ask, grounding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Get in sunlight whenever possible. Get in fresh air, maybe doing your cardio out in nature. Those are our ancestral tenets. But then we are able to combine it with today's technology. So if you can't go outside and ground yourself, you can get grounding shoes. You can have a grounding mat that you can sleep on, for instance, or at your desk. You've got blue light blocking glasses to block the blue spectrum of the light that maybe at nighttime is penetrating your retina and is increasing your cortisol levels. You're not releasing your melatonin or oxytocin or serotonin, so now you're having difficulty to sleep. And there's a lot, like when I'm traveling, I do a lot more biohacks than when I'm at home. Because
you're in control at home?
Control the environment. I'm a little bit more in the country where we live, as opposed to being smack bang in the middle of like London or Dubai or something like that, where there is a lot more non-native EMF and Wi-Fi, and you're stuck in air conditioning the whole time.
Yep.
So there are aspects to it that you can combine. I think there's a lot of value to them. Some people feel that it can be a little bit obsessive, but if that obsession makes you feel better, and you're able to look at your blood markers, for instance, or your biological age and say, wow, I've reduced my biological age by 2 years, or my blood markers are now perfect. Well, if that obsession is creating that and you feel better about yourself, then be obsessed.
So you're 50. What is your
biological age?
Biological age is 26?
26, last
Meaning
time I measured it.
that you have, is that bone density, testosterone? I mean, what makes it 26?
So there's various ways of having your biological age test. You can do methylation. You can do telomeres. So telomeres are like strands from your DNA that shorten as you get older. If that shortens much quicker than your chronological age, obviously biologically you're going to age a lot more. And then there's glycans. So every cell has this glycan in our body, so you can actually do a glycan age test as well. There's various forms of measuring your biological age. So that will look at, for instance, your organs, your hormones, everything's kind of in balance, your inflammatory markers. It'll look at all of those things and give you that number. It's probably an estimate, but what I like to do is suggest that you do that one test and then do that very same test every year and use that as your marker as opposed to going from one test to another to another. It's much like, you jump on a scales here and then you jump on a scales in a hotel. It's going to be wrong. I don't care if your scales at home is wrong. As long as you give me the weight on that every single week. Yeah.
So, I mean, where does somebody start? Like for me, I'm 40 years old. I want to start rewinding myself. I mean, where is the average Joe? Because obviously you have the knowledge and everything. I mean, obviously besides somebody can reach out. I'm sure you do clinics, classes on these, online coaching.
Yeah.
Where do I even start if I want to stop my process right now of aging and get into the biohacking where I mean, obviously, let's say it's not even that accurate, but you cut off half of your life right there.
Yeah, for sure.
Rewound half. Let's say it's 30 or 40. I'd be happy with 10 years knocked off.
Yeah. Yeah, like when I first had it tested, I was 2 years older than my chronological age.
Really?
So I've been able to reduce that. So what I would suggest is, number one, you first get a blood test.
Okay.
Analyze that, see where your markers are off, where your deficiencies are. You know, a lot of people say, well, what supplements should I take? Well, I don't know. I don't know what your deficiencies are.
For sure.
You know, you should only fill what you're deficient in, really. And then, I always suggest to begin with, take a biological age test, like glycan age, because that usually gives people the accountability to go, wow, I need a change. Because me as a trainer could tell you, but usually the quantification tells another story that people listen to that much more.
When you see a hard number, and now it's a wake-up call.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just me telling you. It's documented from studies, from the test. And then, you mentioned that you're lacking in sleep. Like, there's a lot of biohacks out there, but I always say, well, the number one biohack for me has been sleep. As soon as I fixed my sleep, I was able to start reversing my biological age. Met my wife. She's a lot younger than me, so that's a great biohack. Get a younger wife. I'm not saying that people should go out there and get a divorce, but it's worked for me, on the farm, we always used to get, when a dog is like on its last legs for the last couple of years, we'd always get a younger dog, and it'd always give him a lease of life, a new couple of years. Maybe that's what's happening in the biohacking world, yeah. But and then like blood glucose monitors, for instance, like a 24-hour blood glucose monitor, you can buy them everywhere now. Nutrisense do them, Ultrahuman does them, and so then you're able to look at your blood sugar spikes, because you may be able to consume, like, say, sweet potatoes. Absolutely fine. But for me, it could give me a massive spike. So I'm like, okay, I'll go for white rice instead. I'll get less of a spike on that, because you don't want too much fluctuation in these spikes. Of course, at certain times around your workout is absolutely fine, but throughout the day, not. So again, that gives you another form of accountability, because if you're testing yourself, you are going to look at the food groups that you're eating.
Way different.
Much more. And I just wore it for like a year, and the first time in 2017, just to kind of learn everything and then kind of go with it after that. And then...
So once you dialed yourself in, you don't need to continue it.
No.
As far as food, what you found what spikes
now.
it, and I mean...
I know what's going to spike it or not. And then, we do have these rings, like Aura Ring, Ultrahuman, where that can... quantify our sleep. Are we getting enough REM or deep sleep? Because that's going to help with the detoxification of our brain. So we've got good memory recall as we get older. We don't have dementia, Alzheimer's, or whatever. There's a few things that you can do, and I just think having that form of quantification will really help you focus, like, on your sleep. Okay, I got to get to bed at this time, because I know if I leave it 2 hours later, even if I do get 8 hours sleep, that my quality is going to be decreased. So I found that, like, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the evening is my sweet spot.
Okay.
For me. But everyone's going to be a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, using that. And, you know, the other biohack I was going to say is, I mentioned earlier, like the blue light blocking glasses. You know, we have red bulbs upstairs in our house.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it kind of looks like a brothel outside, especially when we've got the red light panels on and stuff. But, you know, having that so you don't have the flicker that is constantly raising cortisol, because cortisol is an anti-catabolic hormone. It can also be bad for the heart. So blocking the blue light, if you are exposed to a harsh lighting, you know, maybe in the evening or throughout the day, you know, can be a good idea. Like, there's a lot of things that you can do, you know. You can go in hyperbaric oxygen, you know, you can do the stem cells, but, you know, it all depends how far down the rabbit hole you want to go.
Yeah.
You know, like our water supply is very different to what it was. Our food supply is very different. So, you know, the majority of people in the US today are deficient in magnesium. So maybe you need a supplement in magnesium, for instance.
Yeah. That was a big reason where I wish it wasn't the you know, how late in the fall we are, but I've converted my whole backyard to a garden. And I grow everything from a seed.
That's cool.
We save our seeds and we replant everything every single year. And I feel in one, it's you're outside all day. The whole family's out there grazing, helping, just spending time out there. You're grounded all day long. I spend the majority of my time from when we plant things till we harvest it all. We're out there every day. There's not a day that doesn't go by where you're out in the sun, grounded to the, you know, earth. And I'm a huge person on grounding. I'm one of those, and I realized it when I was in the military and I spent time when we would be out at sea. It just, I didn't feel right until we would hit port and get back in. But like, I am a barefoot, flip-flop. I hate being in shoes, hate being in boots. Like, it drives me nuts. Like, when I travel on planes, like, I bring a pair and I swap out my shoes because like, I can't, I hate not being grounded. It's one of those, I grew up as that kid, like, from when the snow melted and the ground was thawed. I mean, we were running barefoot. I mean, we never, unless we were at school, never. And so like, I'm big on that with the family. When we do our walk barefoot. And I mean, I'm sure people in the neighborhood probably think we're weird, but I feel that has a huge benefit when it comes to your body and connecting and the energy. And, you know, you talk to people like, man, that's some pretty hippie shit, but it's like,
no. There's a great there's a book by Clint Ober, and there's a movie, and it's called Earthing the Movie. You can find it like on Vimeo and YouTube. And you'll see a lot of the studies and the science that backs it up, that it can reduce a lot of inflammation in the body. Now, because we have a lot of satellite Wi-Fi.
5G, everything.
5G. So, you know, if you hold an EMF meter with your phone, for instance, the EMF goes all the way up. But now if you take your shoes and socks off and stand on the grass, it goes all the way down because it's penetrating through you instead of into you, and you're absorbing a lot of those negative ions, which is a good positive charge for your body. And, you know, you mentioned being in the garden out there earlier. You know, one of the things that we know from studying like the blue zones.
Yes, you know, I'm big on the blue zones. Yeah. Okay, I know. Okay, continue. I'm sure you're way more knowledgeable on this, but yes.
Yeah, where people live to a disproportionate age, like centenarians are over 100 years old, but they are in good health at being over 100 years old as well. And they'll notice there's a few things that's common between these blue zones like Okinawa, Sardinia, etc., is where a lot of these villages are on steep hills, and these people are still walking around. In places like Sardinia, there's no word in their language for retirement, so they just don't know what retirement means, so they've always got that purpose. And the other common denominator is that they have great connection with their family, with their friends. You know, they're not loners as much as community. So that connection is very powerful.
I feel, sorry, I mean interrupt. I feel humans, and my wife and I have talked about this a lot, like we're a community creature. We are not built to be alone. That's why they have these shows and they send these guys and they go up to Alaska and they drop them off by themselves. And they all mentally break down. I mean, you could be the biggest survivalist in the world. I hate solo hunting. I got buddies like, oh, I love getting in the mountains by myself. Like day 2, I'm like, I'll stub my toe. Fuck it, I'm out. I just need somebody there. It's not a fear thing. It's not have to rely on somebody. I love having a partner or somebody to be able to share something with, and that is a huge thing that I feel is us as a society. We're burying ourselves in our work, burying ourselves in our home and technology and phones, and kids are disappearing to their rooms and their parents will have to deal with them, and we're creating this lonely society where people don't have that family community anymore. And that's something that we push so hard here. That's why we pulled our kids out of school. I'm with my kids breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And, whatever they need, we're with them. My kids don't come home. They don't just disappear in their rooms. I mean, obviously, you have a teenage girl, they need their time and their friend. I get it and understand that. My wife's always harping on me for that. But, like, we do everything together. And I grew up. I mean, we did everything as a family together. And then it's sad to see. I got buddies, and they have no idea what their kids are up to. And I'm just like, man, like, you're setting the future of them to not, I don't want to say be a loner as in like a loser loner, but like they have no drive to go out. Now these kids have a full conversation on Snapchat and through social media, but then when they meet up together at a restaurant or In-N-Out, they can't even have a conversation because they don't know how to like communicate and act and interact with other people. And it's really sad. And I feel like that's been kind of an agenda with this government and everything, especially the last several years, is
create that separation for sure.
Divide and conquer. And these, and it's really sad to watch some of these families that just, they live under one roof and they all have a different life. And it's sad. And then you look at some of these ancient communities and it's the neighbors, this guy's growing this and this one's got the eggs and they got the cattle, and it's just, that's how it is. And that, if I had my dream, that's how it'd be. I'd want to have a property where my kids never had to leave, but everybody, you had a community where everybody had a purpose and just helped each other. I mean, and that's where you see with those blue zones. I mean, that's where we really got into getting rid of all the breads and bad carbs, and we really switched we have a bread company, and we were going to make you a loaf, and I'm like, I'm sure this dude does.
You do sourdough.
Yes.
That's the only bread we eat. We do sourdough.
Damn it.
No, next time. Time.
I'll actually, we'll bring you some, but
because it's fermented.
Yes, and it's leavened. I mean, that's biblical. I mean, people, they talk about it in the Bible.
And it doesn't give you like a blood sugar spike.
Because it's fermented. Yeah. And we really got into it because when we were living out of homes in Iraq, they would just feed us random food, or the Iraqis that we were working with, the interpreters or the military police, they were allowed to shop in stores and things like that. We couldn't stop them. That's kind of one of the, not rules, but when we would be coming back from patrol, if they needed their own food, because they wouldn't eat a lot of our own, they would cook. Or when we would run checkpoints, a guy would come through with sheep in the back of his truck, and they would bam, ask, let's buy. And when we would detain people or search people, they'd always have money on them, or you'd find cars and smuggling money. So we always had cash on us. I would buy these guys a sheep. They'd take it back to their little camp, and they'd come back with this big pot of stew, sheep stew. So who knows what we caught over there? As far as pesticides, we're getting ready to do a whole pesticide cleanse here as a family, because we're big sushi. We eat, I mean, I'm sure you go through it because you're eating all over the world. But it was one of those things, like I don't know what I got, but my whole team, a bunch of guys that we were all together, got tore up guts. And it was years. My whole marriage with my wife, I eat something straight through me.
You had a parasite, yeah.
And so that's when she's like, I'm done. We got to figure this out. And so that's when we really switched over to sourdough and started making it, and we'll never go back.
Yeah,
I mean, it's amazing. I mean,
it is good.
There's nothing better than pulling a fresh loaf out. Normally, we every guest gets it, but I'm like, this guy, there's no way he's eating sourdough.
Well, like you're talking about Sardinia, they always do. They always have sourdough bread.
Yep.
And the one thing I was going to mention as well is that they'll know they've studied, like in Okinawa, is that a lot of these people that are centenarians, they don't have seats in their home; they sit on the floor. And they on average they stand and sit on the floor about 40 times a day.
Wow.
That's their resistance training. You never hear of these people losing their balance, breaking a hip, dying 6 months later because they've got that bone density. They're working on their coordination. They're not necessarily going to a CrossFit box or working out in a gym, but they're staying active.
But it's an 80-year-old woman that's sitting on the floor and getting up every time they need something.
Exactly. I even struggle with that now.
Oh, I feel you.
But it's something that we can learn from and be inspired by. Like I am terrible, I admit, on the aspect of the human connection. Maybe it's because of my upbringing, being on, mostly doing stuff by myself. Like I always participated in individual sports, like motocross, mountain biking, Ironman triathlon. The only time that I participated in a team sport was rugby.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. I didn't like it. I liked the sport till I broke my wrist. But I've just never done well so much around a lot of strangers. When I do my talks, I love being in front of people, but I don't like the bit before or after where you have to mingle.
I'm with you on that. I would prefer to be with my wife and kids over anybody. And it's, us having companies where we have to go and meet and greet. And I'm always like, oh, and my wife's like, get the fuck out there. Go do your thing.
It's an energy exchange at the end of the day as well.
And when you do it long enough, you realize it just sucks your energy.
For sure.
And you're just like, why? I have no problem. If I had my way, it'd be like, and introducing, and you walk up, do your thing, gone. But when you're sitting there, especially trade shows, those are the hardest on me. And we just pulled from our last trade show that I've done for the last 9 years, and it's a 4.5 day show, almost 5 day show. And you're there from 8 in the morning till 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, indoors, standing all day. Then you have to go to a banquet immediately afterward, and I hate it. Yeah, I hate it.
I'm with you. 100%.
And it's the same thing over again, and same talks and same stories and same people. I'm just like, God, and some people live for it, but me, I'm like, if I never have to do any of that shit again, I would be so happy with that, because it's just what it comes down to me is my energy.
Yeah, exactly. It's an energy exchange, because at the end of the evening, yes, whatever team that you're there with, you're usually invited to a dinner that you kind of committed to go to, and it's the last thing I want to do. I just want to go back to my hotel room and just have silence, because I usually work out first thing in the morning. I just don't want any of that. But I am quick to recognize some of these things, like with all the travel that I've had to do this year, for instance, I'd be like, oh my God, not another bloody 12-hour flight or whatever. But then I'd quickly realize what I'm thinking and just say, shut the F up. If this was you 20 years ago, you would dream of this position right now.
Sure.
So, enjoy it, because it isn't always going to last. However, but in saying that, like, I've said no to quite a few engagements next year, because I'm like, I just want to be in Boise, just want to be with my wife, just want to focus on the things that are in front of me, as opposed to traveling all the time, because time goes so quick then, and we're trying to be present in the time and allow time to slow down. And, with all that travel, it's very, very difficult, and there's a reason why I moved to Boise. I love Boise. I love the Four Seasons, but if I'm not here to experience the Four Seasons, am I really living my life?
You're living everybody else's life.
Yeah.
Or you're living for that lifestyle, which definitely wears on you over time.
Yeah.
Kind of change the pace a little bit. I want to talk steroids. Not saying you've done them, because obviously you're a natural guy, but this young generation, I'm seeing these kids now that are just, they got the Sam Soliks and all the Trend twins. Because I watch her generation kids, and I have guys that they know me. I've talked about it. I ran cycles when I was in the Marine Corps. I did it completely wrong. I mean, the heaviest I was like 298. I was giant. I mean, I was military pressing, standing 315 like it was nothing, like freak. And you ask Zach even now, I'll go, he won't see me for 6 months. I go in the gym and he's like, you're the only person that could just not touch anything for months, and you come right back in, and within a week you're right back to where it was. For these young kids that are listening, they hear the hype, they see everything. What's the reality of these young kids that are falling into these traps and watching the wrong influencers? Because I was fortunate enough when I first got into it and I was doing it wrong. There was these big old school Arnold white T-shirt, Dickie jeans, white socks, and they pulled me under their wing. And they're like, you're gonna completely fuck yourself. The long-term effects are horrible. Can you touch on just the do's and don'ts, or where you're seeing these kids now, and why they're idolizing these wrong guys with the steroids and the long-term effects for them? Because it's they're young, it's flashy, it looks cool, they're putting size on, but like, is it worth it? I guess is my question at a younger age.
Definitely not worth it. You know, the funny thing is, having been in the industry for so long and knowing like pretty much all the top bodybuilders, the competitive bodybuilders, you'd be surprised how little they take in comparison to the, you know, like some kid, you know, maybe in Boise, or an amateur bodybuilder. They take so much less. You know, they always have their blood work taken. You know, I'm not saying what they do is right or wrong. You know, I'm not here to judge them. I don't have the right to judge them. They don't have the right to judge me. But they generally do it the right way, where they go see their doctor. They have their blood work every 3 to 6 months and see where they're at. They come off. They go back on. But what we're seeing today is that people never come off. They take extortionate amounts. And social media has to blame to a lot of this, you know, because you've got your Sam Suleks. Like, I don't know Sam personally, but, you know, some of the stuff that I see he's put out, like eating a crap load of cereal with milk and whatever, I'm like, regardless if you're taking gear or not, that's not healthy. It's not healthy. You know, obviously, you know, taking the steroids is going to have a compounded effect on that. For sure, you know, on your testosterone levels, on your, you know, your heart, your organs, your liver, your kidneys, absolutely everything. You know, everything is going to be enhanced in a negative way internally, you know. And then when people, some of these people come off, now they don't feel as good, they feel flatter, they don't have the focus, they don't have the energy. So what do? They go back on, and they can't come off now, you know, and they're stuck. Now they're dependent on it, and it's very, very addictive. I've noticed for a lot of people, very, very addictive. They can't live a life without it.
Is it addictive, or is it the body dysmorphia?
No, I don't know if it's that, because I've got body dysmorphia. I always will, probably. You know?
When I ask for that, because they see themselves like as a number. You know, oh my God, I finally broke 200. But when they get off, they don't realize how much water weight they're actually going to drop.
Yeah.
How the strength is going to go down. I mean, is that the addiction, or is it the actual drug that you think they're addicted to?
I think it's the drug, because the drug gives a certain feeling to some people. Like, I know there's certain drugs that they can take that helps with their joints. There's certain drugs that they can help for their strength in the gym, so they see the numbers going up. There's certain steroids that they can take specifically for size, for mass building. So all of these effects can be addictive, especially when people do have like body dysmorphia, I'm sure. But I think everybody that got into bodybuilding was either bullied, or they had body dysmorphia. There was some sort of insecurity that they're trying to deal with. And look, there's more insecurities in the world now than ever before. People are comparing themselves to see what they see online. And what you see online is just what people decide to put out there, not necessarily exactly what they're dealing with. And, you know, kids today, you know, not everybody, I'm generalizing, are getting very easily influenced, because, you know, I always tell people, prioritize the sacrifice and the success will come. But a lot of people just want the success, and they want it now.
Overnight, because that's what they see.
Yeah.
They see the Ferraris, they see the mansions, they see these kids that are just all of a sudden out of nowhere, and they have it all, but they have no idea that the kid's renting it.
Yeah.
It's his dad's house, it's his dad's cars.
Exactly.
And then that's where I feel the mental battle really sets in.
It creates insecurity, for, you know, because now they're reflecting that to their own life. It's like, well, where did I go wrong? So if a steroid is an opportunity for me to look a certain way a lot quicker, then they're going to take it without considering the repercussions. You know, like Dorian Yates even said, you know, obviously he's on TRT now, but he went cold turkey for like 5 years. He didn't know any better. And he went through major depression at that time. Yeah, like I was with him at that time. He was doing a lot of drugs, alcohol, and stuff like that. Again, just kind of masking the issue that was underlying. But, you know, you ask him, as a 20-year-old, would you have said, hey, if you take this pill, you will win the Mr. Olympia, but it'll take 20 years off your life? Would you have taken that pill? It's like, for sure. Because that's how a lot of people that are in their, you know, teens or 20s think. They just think, I want that regardless of the sacrifice that I have to make. But unfortunately, what we're seeing today is a lot of people are making major sacrifices to their health way before their time. Like, there's a guy that I know, Jackson, he passed away last week from Australia. He was like 28, I believe. Very, very young. died.
Damn.
And it's happening so often now. So often. It's like you look at some social sites like Generation I, and it's more of an obituary than it is like a news information
No shit.
social platform now. Yeah, it's terrible.
Sad.
Yeah, it's really bad.
And I think I feel I'm with you on that. It's all social media. Is the main engine driving
for sure
these insecurities with these kids.
That's what, with eating disorders, absolutely everything is across the board. And I always try to tell people, you need to use social platforms and not allow it to use you. Bookend your day. Be conscious that that you're not scrolling all the time. I try to post and ghost, and that's it. I'm off. Until I have to post the next day, because you spend so much time on her anyway. Emailing and shopping and whatever. Yeah. It's a drug that is so accessible. If you want to get cocaine, steroids, alcohol, whatever it may be, you usually have to go and make an effort to get those things. We have all those drugs in the palm of our hand all the time. The emails, the WhatsApp, the texting, the Amazon, the social platforms. Yeah. It's all there, and that gives us a dopamine release. Not only does the artificial blue light give you a dopamine release, but so is the action of scrolling for reading. It activates the brain and activates dopamine, which makes us feel good. And the more that we activate it, the more we're dependent on getting that activation. We get depleted. Even more. It makes us dumb.
Yeah, absolutely. So shift gears a little bit, and then I'll get you out of here. First question is, so these young kids, obviously you've been in this game a long time, and I feel, and don't take this the wrong way, I feel the fitness industry is one of the most unhealthiest industries, competitive-wise.
Yeah.
Because the fact women are losing their periods, going through these preps, and that can't be healthy for a woman. And what that longevity there, guys that are just depleting themselves of everything to step on stage. For these young kids that are looking up to these role models, good or bad, what's a healthy way or a smart way for them to get into it supplement-wise?
Supplement-wise? Well, obviously, I am an advocate now ever since I got the mold toxicity, because through experimentation, I went, grass-fed, humane-raised, organic, wild-caught. And then all of a sudden, I was like, wow, all that inflammation that I felt in my knees, in my elbows, is all gone after about a month. I thought it was just a byproduct from weight training. But no, it was the inflammation of maybe, higher omega-6, because I'm having factory-farmed fish as opposed to wild-caught, So I was lacking in the omega-3s. But, making sure that you are eating single food ingredients, because everything that we see out there now is preserved. It could be low fat, but it's got a laundry list of ingredients that you can't even pronounce.
For sure.
And that has a negative effect. You always have to look at that food as, is it going to feed my workouts? Is it going to allow me to recover? And is it going to fuel my future? Is it going to heal my future? If it doesn't, don't touch it. Don't touch it. Sugar is the biggest killer.
Oh, for sure.
Then we got seed oils and stuff like that. But then when it comes to supplementation, I'm not a huge advocate of caffeine either, because that does raise your cortisol levels. You're going to raise your cortisol levels in the gym anyway. Yeah. You don't want it raised even more so.
Yeah.
And that can also have a diuretic effect. You should be fully hydrated in the gym. So try to stay away from that. Of course, you want something that's going to allow you to get more of a pump so you can get better mind-muscle connection. Something that's going to buffer lactic acid so you can get out more reps, or endurance, dependent on what your sport is going to be. And then, for instance, like a protein powder is going to be more convenient for some people than others. There's other people that, I can eat 6 times a day, no worries. Okay, then just have your post-workout shake. But other people, they just can't eat that many times, so maybe they're going to have more shakes to rely upon. Again, whenever possible, try to go for grass-fed. But the one thing that, because you don't want, again, the antibiotics and all that crap in there, but the one thing that I am an advocate of, that I've become more of an advocate over recent years, is going for naturally sweetened products. If anything's flavored, it's a powder, try to go for naturally sweetened as opposed to ACE K or sucralose.
Okay.
Because over time, that can have an effect on your gut microbiome. Now, you may have gut dysbiosis, you may have leaky gut or whatever, but that inflammatory reaction in your gut can lead to a chemical reaction in your brain because your hormones are created in your gut, the majority of them as well.
I mean, your gut's everything.
You
I
have
feel
to
like.
prioritize it.
Yeah.
You have to prioritize it. You know, people will get away with it earlier in life, but after a while, you know, something will come to fruition. You know, it's like if we get heart disease, if we become diabetic, if we've got a certain cancer, a lot of that was started like 20 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. And it's just that accumulation, that death of 1,000 cuts. So making sure everything is kind of perfected. And, you know, we have, especially in the US, energy drinks. People in the UK and Europe do not drink much water. You're a water advocate. Hydrate, man. You know, your body's made up of at least 60% fluid. And if you're not hydrated, you're probably not going to have the energy to work out. You're not going to have the enthusiasm. You could have a headache because your brain is dehydrated. You know, the brain shrinks by about 50% during the night. You got to hydrate. You know?
I mean, I literally go to bed with this thing, wake up with it. I thought I left it on the plane the other day, and I was devastated, devastated. But it's just insane. So let's talk your supplements then. I mean, what separates? I'm a huge anti-supplement guy because I feel it's just such a gimmick. What was that series? Now that I think about it. Was it Bigger, Stronger, Faster?
Oh, yeah.
Where the guy just made supplements in his kitchen.
I know that guy, Bell. Yeah.
Throws a label on it and gets it picked up at like G&Z, and it just shows you how
easy it is.
Fucked and easy it is. So anybody can slap anything. I used to work, especially, and the reason I'm so anti is because there's all these outdoor supplement companies, right? These guys, and they're just white labeling.
Mountain Ops and
they're the biggest example. I don't want to throw names out there, but now that we mention them, those guys, because when they first came out, they were sending out label packages that you would peel off their label, and it was another brand's labeling underneath. They're literally slapping their label over, and you see these guys, and they're like, "Man, this is the greatest. Helps me conquer the mountain." And it's like you turn it around, and it's pure bullshit.
Yeah.
What is so different about your sups that separate you from everybody else in this industry, and what should we as consumers be looking for?
So luckily, you know, when I got into like the biohacking world, I really started focused and prioritizing longevity over aesthetics.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I started having a closer look at the supplement industry, I realized, okay, this is part of the health and fitness industry, but supplements aren't healthy. So how is this
helping in the fitness industry?
How is this combined? You know, where's the bridge? And, you know, so we know that a lot of these products have proprietary ingredients, less of them now, thankfully, where people will just have a load of ingredients and then the proprietary at the top, not knowing how much of each one of those ingredients are in there.
Really?
So the cheapest ones could have the majority, and the more expensive and efficacious ones could be a fairy dust. So we call it fairy dusting. So you may look at the label and see, wow, look how many ingredients are in here, but it could be a very, very small amount. And you have to have an efficacious dose that is shown in studies to have a positive effect for that to really be on the back. So for instance, let's say if it's citrulline, that's going to help with vasodilation, you know, it's thinning the blood, helps with the pump. You need a minimum of 6 grams of citrulline, but on some of these products, the scoop could be 6 grams. You know, so you're just not going to get the efficacious amount. A lot of them are filled with artificial colors, artificial flavors, artificial sweeteners. So we do not have any of those. You know, much like in the UK, you can't have artificial colors and flavors and whatnot. Here in the US, you can. So I'm just taking the ethics of like in the EU and just bringing that over here. You know, you'd look at a ketchup bottle over here compared to there or cereal.
Yep.
It's a very completely different ingredient profile. And we actually, you know, with our whey protein, for instance, we get that from grass-fed cows in the UK.
And you went and personally visited these farms?
No, I haven't,
okay.
I haven't visited, not yet.
Okay,
Not
okay.
yet. Next time I'm in Wales, I may. But no, that's where we get it from.
Got
you
it.
know, because we know that it's, you know, it's just not going to have the hormones necessarily, or pesticides, glyphosates, herbicides, whatever that is necessarily in.
So you're
the
going
system.
that deep into your whey protein, like you're making sure these farms aren't using any of that stuff, because that obviously all trickles down into the supplement itself.
Of course.
How many of these supplement companies are actually doing that?
I don't know of anyone. Maybe Yamamoto, but
Okay.
Yamamoto isn't sold over here. It's more of a
So
European
you're talking
country.
stateside, these whey proteins. I mean, you're getting all the hormones, pesticides, toxins, everything that these cattle are just being fed shit.
The majority, yeah. The majority, vast majority. And
That's
it's the same
scary.
like with, I mentioned citrulline before, or just other amino acids like, your essential amino acids, BCAAs or glutamine, for instance. Unless it is fermented, would you believe it? We know it in the supplement industry, but a lot of your listeners probably don't, is that it's usually extracted from bird feathers, animal fur, or human hair. If it's fermented, it can come from a plant source, which still retains the same nitrogen.
Wait. Let's rewind that.
Yeah.
They're sourcing this from
Bird feathers, animal fur, and human hair.
why?
Because that's where the amino acids are. You can extract the amino acids from those sources.
And and clearly it's cheaper
Yeah,
to use those
it's
than it is
cheaper.
to ferment something.
Yeah, and you'll get a lot of people that are vegan, but they're purchasing these products and they have no idea. So it's not really kosher.
So you have vegans that have no idea that they're using animal and human parts.
Yeah, so my job is to tell people, and there's other people like myself, to say, look for fermented amino acids. Doesn't have to be from my brand, but if you're getting it, make sure that it is fermented. Yeah, and where a lot, people are like, well, where do they get the hair from? It's from convicts. They collect the hair in the prisons for the amino acids.
Wait.
Maybe some of your hair when you was in the military was shipped off for some aminos. Who knows?
They're using convict hair
Yeah.
to pull amino acids for supplements, and people have no idea.
No, some people
I
do.
mean, I
Like
know
some
it's-
of us
I
in the
know it's-
supplement industry know, but think about it. Those companies that do know that are utilizing it, they're not going to tell the world. They're going to.
I mean, I get it. It's sterile but it's still.
Yeah, it's not. God, what's the word that I'm thinking of?
That's
I've lost now, but it's not ethical. It's not really ethical.
I
is
would
it,
say so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree with you on that. I mean, I guarantee you, if they put sourced from human hair,
Yeah, you're going to
their
put it back
sales
down.
would drop in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
That's just how shows you not that example, but like how blind people are to marketing and just, oh, Ronnie Coleman's using it. It's got to be great.
Yeah. Ronnie doesn't use anything. Or he
No.
never used to, anyway. Never used to. But
That
yeah,
is
you have to
insane.
take a very close look. It's much like, for instance, like the CBD industry. It's just a wild, wild west.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, if that company is reputable, we, visit all of our manufacturing plants. I've flown overseas before to look at, for instance, ashwagandha. KSM 66 is a patented form of that. I visited their plantation and, the way that it's sourced and how they look after their employees. And, where we are getting our products manufactured, we visit the plants. We'll film inside there.
Maybe that's what I was thinking of, because I knew at some point I've heard or watched you talk about how you visited
Yeah.
locations of sourcing your supplements.
Yes, exactly. So wherever our ingredients are actually being mixed, manufactured, that's where we'll usually go inside and check. They're on board. They're all CGMP certified facilities, all third-party tested, just to ensure that if anybody was to ask for a COA, we can provide it. All of our products are third-party tested.
And this is all unmatched, correct?
All unmatched, yeah.
Because I mean, I like how humble you are. You didn't come out and say the name of your brand or anything like that, but it shows just the confidence that you have in it. I mean,
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like for instance, my little nieces, they drink, what's called ElectroShred. It's a hydration product. I'm not going to give that to them if I know it's full of artificial crap.
I would
know
hope so.
half of the stuff they feed to kids is artificial anyway, but I don't want that for them.
Yeah.
So I feel, look, if it's not good enough for them, it's not good enough for anybody, really. It's like, okay, we could have much bigger margins. We could shave a lot of these ingredients, but like we don't need to be multi-millionaires. You know, we have to have a purpose at the end of the day.
Well, and you care.
Yeah, and you should. You should at the end of the day. You know, some of these supplement companies do, but others, you know, people behind them don't even work out. So, you know, I always say knowledge without mileage is bullshit. You've got to put in the mileage as well. You know, and if you want authenticity to what you're trying to educate on or sell or market, then it helps if you really believe in what you're doing and what you're putting out there, you know. And there's other products that, you know, without sounding like I'm pitching here, but, you know, we really look deep into the benefit of certain ingredients and how in combination it could possibly provide more. So we have a creatine called Kris Gethin. We're the only company in the US selling this. It's sold in Europe and Australia, whatever. Is that it's creatine combined with GAA, guanidinoacidic acid.
Okay.
With B vitamins to bring the homocysteine levels back down. But that has been proven to cross the blood-brain barrier so much more efficiently and be more neuroprotective than creatine alone. So,
And this is something that you could just take on a daily.
yeah, of course. I think
Workout or not.
everybody should be taking it. You know,
'Cause
you want
there's
to protect
so
your
many
brain. You want to protect your brain. Take creatine.
Because there's so many studies coming out recently. I mean, I know there has been, but now I don't know if it's just because it's trending.
There is more and more.
But I feel like the last couple of years, there's been a huge, creatine isn't just like a pre or for workout. It's an actual supplement that you should be adding to your diet daily for men and women.
Yeah. It's the most studied amino acid out there on the market. And, you know, we were talking about gut health earlier. You know, I'm sure, you know, there's a lot of your listeners are aware of colostrum. So the beneficial part of colostrum is the immunoglobulins. So we've been able to isolate the immunoglobulins, you know, without the dairy, without the bovine. So it's just much more isolated. So I think colostrum is about 50% immunoglobulins. We're like double that. So we've been able to source a much more efficacious form. And there's just been a white paper released now about 3 weeks ago showing how far superior it is.
Really?
Yeah, because, you know, a lot of us are exposed to a lot of artificial sweeteners or contaminants or whatever, and we do have some form of gut dysbiosis, leaky gut, or don't have the opportunist flora that we need to better digest, to break down. You know, people have bloat for it. You know, so this is a form of healing the gut.
I definitely got to get with you after this, and I want to build out a list of stuff I need to pick up from you because gut health, sleeping, everything. I want a full list.
I'll help you with the sleep. We don't have any supplements for sleep as yet, but there's a lot of things that you can do to help with that.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Man, I appreciate your time.
No, I appreciate it too, brother. Thank you very much for having me on.
Yeah, this is a great conversation. I'm very grateful you came on. You opened my eyes up to some things, and especially the supplement world and just your life in general. It's awesome to get to know you because obviously you're good friends with Zach. He's one of my best dudes here.
He's the man.
He's a great guy. We're going to have him on here soon and talk the industry and the behind the scenes and the kind of why he got out of competing and all that stuff. And
yeah,
I'm really glad you came on, man. And I'm hopefully that some people will be able to pick something up from you and just be able to, you know, get a hold of people want to reach out. How do they find you if they got questions, supplements, online coaching, anything, because you provide it all. So how does somebody get a hold of you?
it's probably best just to go to my Instagram, send me a direct message on there. I'm pretty responsive. So that's at KRIS Gethin, Kris Gethin, Gethin.
Cool. And we'll get you tagged and everything, dude. I appreciate your time, man. I know you're a busy guy. And
thank you.
All over the place.
It's an easy drive out here, mate.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you. I appreciate everything. This is awesome, man.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me on, buddy.
Absolutely. Anytime. Cool, dude. Thanks,
Lovely.
man.
No, thank you.
That's awesome. Thanks for
cool.
the knowledge, man. Yeah, I definitely want to get on and get your subs all lined up because once I jumped onto the pre-workout,
Well, like I said, I sent you the link, didn't I? Yeah, just tell me what you want.